Oh boy. Um, so obviously you probably already know what the topic is going to be tonight, given the events of the last 24 hours. We've seen some things that we have not seen in our history, most of us at least, and a lot of people have strong opinions about it. And we're going to talk about those opinions today. This is not going to be our traditional format where I have someone who necessarily reflects the alternating view. I could not get someone who's willing to come on tonight to do so, but we are going to have an open discussion that is still objective and fair. We're not here to just rag on people or kick anybody while they're down. We just want to explore the mindset from our perception of the people involved in last night's activity and how we take it. And feel free if someone has a counterpoint that they would like to provide in the comments. I'll do my best to monitor as we have this conversation. But we got to talk about it. I mean, this is history. I'm really curious to see the kids that'll have to read about this in books and if the revisionist history version of it will be what we saw. Regardless, I'm Johnny, um, your impartial host, and I've got a couple guys with us tonight, a couple mainstays, stalwarts, if you will, of the show. Vernon, if you'd like to introduce yourself, I'm sure everyone already knows who you are, but hey,
Hey, Vernon, educator. My wife always tells me to stop joking about being a big dumb jock. So I even had a conversation with a longtime friend of mine. And I had to say, like, yeah, I'm smart. I work hard to be smart, just like I worked hard to do a lot of things. And man, the last 24 hours are so interesting because for as shocking as people are seeing it, it wasn't shocking at all because that was the only possible outcome from my perspective. It's so disheartening. I keep sharing one image that just breaks my soul. But the dialogue that continues to happen, I want to. We have created a great safe space, and I've been a little off my square of trying to hear other people's perspective because I'm gonna just be real. Shit you say at times makes no sense to me. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying it's stupid. It just doesn't add up to me. It defies my logic. And we're gonna talk about some things. The teacher and me wanted to have like a bulleted point list, but I mean, I know this conversation is gonna be good, and I would advocate for people. Advocate if we are continuing to talk about how divided this country is, then say it to someone's face that disagrees with you with respect in both of you all's heart. And then we can talk about how we grow.
very well said. Here, introduce yourself.
Hey, what's up, y'all? D Easley, former government teacher, filled in at Sappho High for a year, and I was telling somebody today, I took over that class as a favor. Vernon was there when I took over that class, and I had a little history background. My minor was that in Michigan State, and I was forced to actually, when you're doing something, you want to do something well, you're actually forced to do things that you have to do. So every day after I taught, I actually came home and researched the next day's lessons. I've been doing that since 2006. Not actually do the lessons and stuff because I don't teach anymore, but actually researching laws and stuff like that. And what we saw yesterday and the fallout that's going to happen, a lot of that is because a lot of people have ignorance, for lack of a better word, of our Constitution, of our laws, of our code, stuff like that. You hear people say things all the time. It might sound good to your ears or it might sound sweet to your ears. But we got a problem. I don't know about worldwide, but I know we got a problem in this nation that people just don't research for themselves. And because of that problem, we saw what happened yesterday, in my opinion. And a lot of that falls back on people listening to other people and not researching for themselves.
All right.
And we have to be better for that. We have to be a better people for that. And we have to get to that
I'm
point.
not an educator.
What do you say?
I said I'm not an educator. I'm a layman here. So
Right.
from a layman's perspective, I feel like, you have to look at the more psychological aspect to it than
I
the,
agree with that.
the scholastic. Because
Mhm.
if I'm researching something, odds are I'm going to stop once I find the information that I was looking for. And
Mhm.
I found what I needed. Here it is. So if I'm looking for ammunition, and you take that further in the concept of conversation, I'm having a conversation with someone. Someone drops a nugget. They just boom. Here you go. Here's this fact. Answer that. Now I'm in a mad dash to reply. I don't want to take 15 minutes or an hour to reply. Like I hate when I'm having a conversation and I'm legitimately busy, like I'm working or something like that, and I cannot respond. And I'm like, this dude feels like he's unearthed my world with his
Winning.
comment. I have no response.
Right.
And then you come back and there's like 14 likes on it, and everyone's like, that's it. And I'm like, well, no, it's not. Here's this information.
Right.
So people are hesitant to do that. Like getting asked a question on the spot. You may know the answer to the question, but the fact that you were asked on the spot makes you question your response, and you kind of lock up. So I feel like when it comes to research, especially in debate, people are more concerned with the response than the actual content of the response. If I can throw something
Which is
out
true. Yep.
to respond to what you just said, I can keep a foothold in the conversation. So that's why you see a lot of like news articles that have, headlines that say what you want it to say, but then you actually read the article and find that it has nothing to do with your position, or it's flat out saying that your
Right.
position is debunked. I had a person actually debating with me, providing their sources, and when you actually read their sources, I'm like, this is literally validating everything that I said. I don't understand. Like, why are you posting this? Because the
Thank you.
headline seems
Mhm.
like it's more leaning towards their perspective. So I don't think that it's like necessarily ignorance. A lot of this is actually willfully done. Like I have a meme of this thing. It is what I want it to be. I want to believe it, and it validates how I feel. So I'm going to go with it. And the more I go with it, it's not necessarily a matter of truth. It's a matter of what people believe. So I can tell you I'm a millionaire. I can put on nice clothes and go on Instagram and make it look like I'm riding a G5 airplane. And if I do it enough, people might start to believe it.
People believe.
Not
Right.
that it's true. So you have to understand the power that is being wielded here, because a lot of people will reference narcissistic tendencies, sociopathic tendencies. And what we have here is a clear open book case of how to manipulate people. But the key to being able to succeed in manipulation is targeting people who are willing to be manipulated. So it's not that they're ignorant. This is what they want. So they're more inclined to go with it because it's the easy road for the path they feel is going to lead to their destination. Case in point, Donald Trump realized, I would say legitimately about a year and a half ago, that he was going to struggle in this election, that he was starting to lose the foothold of the love that the people said they had for him. So he started placing seeds of doubt in the election all
Right.
the way then. Like, hey, if the election goes down, it's going to be rigged. It's automatic. It's fraud. So I start planting that seed. It starts gaining a foothold. People start relating to it and they believe it, and it grows and grows and grows. But there's never been a shred of evidence to prove it. It's just, hey, this is the thing. Like, you restricted the mail system 2 days before the election, but then the complaint is that ballots are arriving late. I don't understand how people don't see the connection there. You tell people not to vote absentee, then you complain that you're not getting absentee votes. I don't understand how people don't see the correlation there. And then the argument,
Absentee votes can't be counted until the polls close.
that's what I'm
So,
saying though. It's
so
like,
up to the minute, poll votes give counted first, which is a majority of your base in these places, especially rural America, and then you call it dumps because you went to sleep and the next morning you were losing. But the same energy, and that hashtag same energy 2021.
Mhm.
That is difficult discussions, official hashtag, I think. Same energy. Because it makes no sense when you go to sleep and you're wondering, oh, why are we losing Michigan now? Why are we losing these places now? When always you wait for the largest counties that house the big cities to bring in their numbers, because you know those will shift the numbers that you currently have. In Michigan, you are going to get Ingham County, you are going to get Genesee County, and that's not even small. That has Flint. You're going to get those numbers, Saginaw County, way before you get Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, Kent. You're going to get those numbers so much earlier, especially because of where the population center in Michigan really is. If I'm looking at Michigan, I am talking about the population center is like Heartland, like right here. Not all this up here. These aren't people. You know, people, you've seen the memes of land doesn't vote. And it's just, you allow yourself, not just because of the confirmation bias, you were waiting for something to seem rigged. I love the Lions. The Lions always get screwed. It's always a bad call that I'm like, man, only the Lions get that. This past weekend, I was so livid at a call for the Lions. And then I was like, no. They had the worst defensive play in football right before halftime that gave the other team 7 points that they should have never had. That had nothing to do with the refs. Same thing here. The one event that you think is the linchpin to all of this happening, you hang on to that, but you don't hang on to all of the things that were factual. I asked a buddy, I won't call him out by name, maybe at the bottom of me and my buddy Glenn, I might call some people out by name. You all reel me in. But I asked him last night, why in the hell didn't they do all this in Florida? Everybody, you even see the memes. Nobody has ever won the presidency without Florida, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, why did they go with the toughest route of Georgia? Why didn't they just, if this conspiracy, if all of this voter fraud was happening, why not take Texas? Why not take Florida? Why not take Ohio? Why is there anything red other than the plain states? Like, come on, people.
Okay, well, I mean, you take that one step further, though, because it's like, you know, to even look at the situation based on the fraud, you know, it's like this is not a situation where we're having rumblings. There's rumblings that there may be fraud. You're dealing with a population of people that are outright stating that the fraud is so blatant that Stevie Wonder could see it.
Mm-hmm.
And my question to that is, and again, I am being completely objective. I am not trying to use any bias. I literally voted for Trump, as we've discussed in the previous episode. I voted for your guy, yet I'm not playing party to this idea that there was fraud because I don't see where any of it is. And every time someone brings information to the table, that here it is, here's the smoking gun. And I'm like, okay, let's look at it. What do we have here? We either have a static photo with no actual verifiable context. We have a tweet or a post of someone's testimony. We don't have the actual testimony. We never have video footage of these court hearings that happened and where these people apparently testified under oath. Furthermore, you asked the question just as a general person who I just walked in the room today and I had no idea any of this was going on. You mean to tell me there was a court hearing about a transgression? Someone testified that they were a witness to the transgression and the court threw it out? Wouldn't that immediately be a red flag? If I'm hearing you tell me that story and I had no idea of any of the events involved, you tell me that, I stop. I'm like, I question that. Like, why would that happen? You know, you see these fantastic stories play out on social media, and it's like, I understand you want to believe that your guy should have won because you wanted them to win. I understand that. However, to take such leaps in logic to get to the conclusion that it had to be fraud, that's what blows my mind. It's like you're literally telling me as a layman that it was impossible for Donald Trump to lose this election. That is what the argument is right now. It was literally impossible. They are telling us that there was no way with our democracy and our voting system that Joe Biden could win. And I have a hard time swallowing that argument because that's not how it works. This wasn't Donald Trump versus a mop. Like there was a legitimate chance that someone else could win. So why is it now the fact that here we are in reality where that is the case that it's so hard to accept? I don't remember back in 2000 when we were talking about ballots being found in the bayou and in the swamp in Florida, everyone saying we're going to take up arms and invade the Capitol because George W. Bush won. And at the time, there was rumblings that there was fraud and there were rumblings that someone was cheated.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, they're like, look, the scope of how much fraud would have to occur to sway the election cannot be verified. Is there one ballot somewhere where somehow someone made an error and put it through and it shouldn't have gone through, regardless, because they usually don't even know who voted. They just know verifying who voted to verify that the vote itself should count, not necessarily who they voted for, but the scope of actual fraud that would be necessary to sway an election that is impossible. So if you're telling me that the registered voters, it's impossible that Biden could have gotten as many votes, I'm telling you it's impossible for enough fraud to be present to sway this election.
Right.
We are not talking about fractional numbers here where it's so tight, so close, because guess what happens when that occurs? A recount. And even though that wasn't the case, there were still recounts. So how many times do we have to validate the election to where you feel it's fraud, yet you have nothing to go on with that assumption other than it's literally what you want to believe, and have people that are willing to fight for that belief on faith?
Fight, die. Commit felonies. They're going to go
not
to
just
prison.
felonies we be in prison. Joe, we're talking about death penalty felonies.
Like, come on, man. I know you had some, dear. I think kind of touched on Johnny's point. I love entertainment. I love TV shows. I love a good TV drama. I love good movies. And after the first or second Saw movie, I was kind of done with them. Because the sequence of events that would have to happen, all that would have to happen is one error, and then the next event doesn't happen. Like, everybody has to die in a certain order. Like, you remember, like, the Saw movies. Just like the Oceans movies. They were cute. They were funny. Brad Pitt was always eating in them. It was funny. But in order for things to happen, a sequence of events with a specific response had to happen. That's where the level of possibilities is unrealistic, is Hollywood. It's not possible. And I asked our friend last night, I said, which one was it? In certain counties, it was Dominion machines. Those aren't used universally around the United States. The counties that didn't have Dominion machines, it was that poll
workers
were doing fraudulent acts. Let's go back to election night when it was, they're handing out Sharpies to Republicans. Nobody even knows who you're voting for. Like, you can't even wear the things that you say within 100 feet of a poll. Like, you can't wear a Trump 2020 shirt. You can't wear those things to go vote. So they don't know who you're voting for. And then, again, to say that people are sitting there counting, discarding ballots, doing all of these things, the level of compliance from all of these people committing a felony is borderline impossible. You can't get that many people about that life willing to throw away their lives without some form of lunacy.
Or large.
You could get a bunch of people to go hit something. You could get a bunch of people to go yell, but you can't organize enough people to systematically, unidentified, commit all of these felonies. It's impossible to me. But the other piece, if we go kind of through the timeline of this week, I think one thing that started this week, obviously, was when the phone call between the president, members of his legal team, the Secretary of State, Brad, begins with an R.
Rassin, some I know.
Yeah,
You know,
sorry. And his lawyer, Ryan Germany, and obviously they have more people. We're on a phone call with Donald Trump and it was interesting, kind of what you're talking about, Johnny, is the receiver of the phone call that I heard is different than the receivers that other people were hearing. So I hear a man desperate that's just asking his friends to help. And the reason I'm going to say his friends is you don't hear a phone call between Jocelyn Benson and her lawyers with the president of the United States. Jocelyn Benson, for those that don't know, that's the Secretary of State in Michigan. He didn't call her and say these have this same dialogue. He didn't call the Secretary of State in Arizona, a Democrat. He didn't call the Secretary of State in Pennsylvania with these same allegations because he specifically was calling the Secretary of State in Georgia a Republican with a Republican governor because he thought that just being a part of the party was going to get them to sway things his way. And everything that he said, there were some key words that he put out there. We had it in the group chat. First off, he said, rumor says. That is not evidence anywhere. By definition, rumors are unsupported allegations. He called it a rumor. But people on Facebook say that's fact. No, he's even admitting, even if it's a Freudian slip, he is saying that this is not fact. This is not substantiated. This is just me saying what I think I heard. Many people are upset. They feel this way. If I'm Ruby Freeman, if Ruby Freeman should be filing a civil lawsuit against the president of the United States, he put her life in danger. Mm-hmm. And her children. It's just the lack of responsibility for even making that call. I wouldn't, all jokes aside, this is the most idiotic criminal acts I've ever seen. I love, again, entertainment. The Wire. You don't talk on phones. But then people are shocked like, oh my God, I can't believe that he recorded that phone call and then leaked it to the media. He didn't leak it until the president threw him under the bus in his tweet.
And lied about it. And lied.
Right. Like until you slandered my character, I was just gonna hold on to this. Next, there is not a meeting that should ever be had where you wouldn't be able to express what happened in that conversation amongst elected officials that should not be information the public could also hear. Like me as a public employee, I can't even keep my salary a secret. Like literally everybody could check my salary. They could check what rules I have to go by, my contract language, everything. And you're the president of the United States and you wanted to have a phone call. And even during the phone call, you don't even have the correct information from your own end where someone has to tell you, yes, Mr. President, you did ask for that too. We didn't ask for Cobb County. Yes, you did, Mr. President. And that wasn't on the opposing end of that phone call. So for the allegations of fraud and everything, it was a joke. But then it didn't take more than 48 hours later for the start of the election to look the exact same way the presidential election looked in Georgia, where you are looking at the Republican candidates with leads. Mm-hmm. And then as more precincts reported, you started seeing those leads dwindle. and dwindle. And when you saw that pretty much the only place left with votes was Atlanta, your state's largest city, largest voter population, and an overwhelming number of Democratic votes that even without people caring were going to go that way, you weren't going to win holding a 20,000 vote lead, knowing that 800,000 votes were coming in and you weren't about to get 400 of them.
You're using facts as opposed to using what we want.
Right.
All that matters is that I was winning. That is where the conversation starts, and that's where it ends. I was winning, so it is mathematically impossible that I could lose. And you know, you get into the situation where it's like you're dealing with, like, let's say an angry customer. You get an angry customer. I'm in the retail world, so I guess I can relate to that on that level. That says, I want your service to be provided to me for free. And then you ask the question of why? Because that's what I want. Okay, well, why should I give it to you for free when I literally just charge the person in front of you for the service that I provide? Because that's how we do our business. I don't care. I just want it free. And it's like that's where we are with this conversation. You talk to the people and, you know, we try to have respectable conversations. And it's like, look, I just want to understand, because I don't see all of this damning evidence that you say you have. I just want to see it. And like yesterday, I was told by a person who said that the election was rife with fraud. I mean, so you are saying that I can't turn 4 different directions and not see fraud in 3 of those turns. That's how rampant the fraud had to be. So I merely asked, give me an example. Give me an actual example of this fraud so I can understand, so that I can level with you, so that maybe I can fight that good fight with you, because I don't see it. Right. And the answer I got was, I don't have time to look up this evidence to give it to you. I'm like, how do you not have time to cite your source? How do you have this information for your argument if you don't have the source? I don't understand that. So you're telling me, especially in this era of digital information, if you know there's fraud, so that means you should be aware of the fraud that you're referencing, that you can't type it in somewhere and bring up tangible information on it. That doesn't make any sense.
So I agree with that. Sorry, you go, De'Aaron.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm going to make it a little short so Vernon can chime in. We have to realize what we're dealing with, and I don't think a lot of Americans realize what we're dealing with. And I've been saying for years now, it started when Trump was running for president, with the propaganda and the selective information and stuff like that. And I was just thinking, it's like, you know what, when I was living in Texas, it didn't even start like that. It started with all this hatred and build up and stuff. It started when Obama won the nomination for the Democrats in 2008, and slowly snowballed from there, from 2008 to 2015, in this underground thing. Oh, the government's not for us, this, that, and the other, all this propaganda, all this you heard these message boards and Alex Jones and these other
who wasn't born here
talk show hosts spread all this stuff. And you have these people believing it because they don't, I mean, honestly, people just listen to the radio or listen to TV or read these things and they just believe it. No research whatsoever. They just believe it. So when Donald Trump comes along, oh, that's a base I can exploit to help me. So that's what Trump did. He exploited that base.
Hold on. Here's my question.
Go ahead.
We caught Hillary cheating. Bernie, why didn't she win the election?
Because the deep state, she was so good, the deep state helped her to lose. That's why.
Wait, hold up. So she had her hands in corruption, actual corruption.
Mm-hmm. She kills people all the time. You didn't know
she
that?
Doesn't have the means.
She kills people all the time.
She bleach spits bleach spits everything. You know that.
Dude, she is a part of, I can't even say it because this shit is so stupid. Q89, Quanon, I don't know, support the Q. She is a part of child trafficking, pedophilia, murdering federal witnesses, criminals, everything. Everything the Clintons touch dies. Everything that they commit gets wiped clear. They are oblivious to prosecution, and she could not beat a fucking celebrity in an election. But you're telling me she has that much power in the world? That defies all
logic. Mm-hmm.
That defies all reason.
Every
that defies
single
all common sense.
Right.
It just
but
doesn't make sense.
That's what we're dealing with, though. We're dealing with people just like what Vernon said, who believes that all that, and they're in an echo chamber, and they keep on getting this stuff, and they think. Go ahead.
Believe that's what that is. That's the end of the day. But at the same time, like Vernon said, same energy. So like, I mean, this is what I want to talk about. What's up with Blue Lives Matter?
Oh, what?
What?
You
talking about Blue Lives Matter who actually fought against the police? The ones that who are saying
follow the rules and you won't be hurt. Don't break the law and you won't be killed.
Oh,
you're talking about wait. So you're talking about the person? You're talking about the former what's she, a Navy SEAL or Army person?
No, she was in the Air Force. But hold on,
go ahead.
We get enough of she was in the Air Force, but at the moment where she was shot, there was a barricaded door. There were Secret Service officers pointing guns at that door. There were people protecting our country's democracy. And she was going through, and let me go through this. We act like servicemen and women have not had enough trauma where they have gone off a deep end. Like, people are mentioning that she was in the Air Force. Do you know how many serial killers, bombers, mass murderers also served this country?
Right.
Like that's not a new theory of PTSD and all of these other things. But when I'm talking about this woman, I'm just trying to find out, why haven't we looked up her criminal history? Maybe it's none.
Actually, they actually did that. The New York Post actually did that today, and they've been posting tweets all day.
But hold on. You know why? Because it doesn't matter. She was shot because of her acts or her actions at the moment provided a threat, and she was shot. And that's all that mattered. Nothing else mattered. She was attacking democracy. She was violating laws. She was warned. All of those things that become excuses and rationale. The part about not even the Blue Lives Matter and following rules. I know we were going to transition to this. This is the tough part for me. People really get it confused. You can't find me when we're talking about evidence. And I think for our viewers and everything, when we say research, honestly, we're not talking research. Like me and Stacey talk about, I'm not asking for an annotated bibliography of where you found something. I just want you to not, when I ask you for a document where you say it is law, for you to provide me a YouTube video. I'm just asking for, when you say that there's this widespread corruption, that you don't give me the Epoch Times. That's all I'm asking for, is that you don't give me something that is not considered credible, that does not have to go through the filtration system of being considered fact.
Well, here's the thing. But, Vernon, like, when you say that, I hear what you're saying completely, but my thing is, like, I don't even really hold it to that high of a standard.
I understand that.
All I need is something that you can show me where I can't use the same jumps in conclusions to disprove it. So if you're saying this picture of shredded paper is shredded ballots, I am looking at a picture of paper shredded on a pallet with a concrete background. How can you tell me that this is evidence when there is no context to that photo? That can literally be my garage right now. So when you show me that and you tell me this is fact, I have questions. And when I ask those questions, I'm looking for answers from them, because this is not concrete. If you're going to put something out there on the shield that this is it, this is absolute, I'm going to show you this and you will understand why there is fraud, then why can there be questions? Why is it something that can be refuted? Where is the video of this? Where is the actual content of your belief where we can see it and everyone can see? Because again, we're not saying there may be fraud. There possibly was fraud. We think there might have been some fraud. No, these people are saying it is fact. It is massive. So we're using words that would notate that there is enough fraud happening where you can see it. We're talking about mafia activity here.
Yeah.
Where they're not openly advertising it, but everyone knows it's happening. I have my store and it's a front for drugs. I know it's happening, but we're not advertising it. That's the level of corruption that you're saying is so clear cut. I need more than a meme. You can't go to court and post memes to the judge for your evidence. That's what. So
I'm just going to add this.
You can get it from Epoch, but just give me an actual tangible piece of evidence, not conjecture. Go ahead.
Right. I think I'm just going to add this real quick. I think that's what I was going with the whole echo chamber. Because if you're in the echo chamber and you get like 50 people saying the same thing, then you take that piece of information or a piece of whatever you want to say and bring it out to people who, for lack of a better term, is not in your echo chamber and will actually criticize and press you and ask you all these questions. Unfortunately, I see a lot of people buckle and they start lashing out with ad hominem, you know what I'm saying? They start talking about you, ad hominem attacks, and it becomes a fight.
Right.
And this is where we need to understand each other in terms of, okay, you got these people here, they use these for lack of a better term, flimsy source material things, and they pass it off as 100% factual information. You know, they don't have the same filtration system. They don't research. Oh, somebody said this. It must be true. Pass it on to other people.
Right.
That's the big issue that we have right now.
When that's the practice, as we heard in the conversation between the president and a Republican Secretary of State, that was his threshold of belief. That's from the president. Right. His threshold of belief was I heard. Literally was I heard. But I mean, kind of going back to what we were talking about, I know we're moving fast and transition into what happened yesterday, but I think it's so interesting with how people use their social media to narrate their points of view, where I already saw from yesterday that it was Antifa, which I'm still absolutely lost how an ideal is considered a group. But then, like the guy that had the horns and everything, where people circled a half image of a tattoo on his chest and another circle around a guy's hand. But then you can already see on social media where they have tagged this same individual wearing this same costume at Trump rallies all throughout the year. All throughout the last 4 years, he's wearing the same uniform at Trump rallies. And now all of a sudden, you are acting like that guy was Antifa. He will be the worst member of being an anti-fascist ever, because he's at more rallies acting like a Trump supporter than he is being an anti-fascist.
Right.
So
with this though, here's another thing, because someone did bring that up yesterday, and my question to that was, so are you saying that every person that broke into the Capitol was Antifa? Because if you're telling me
a lot of people
just trickled into that and then they incited the problems, how is it that the Patriots didn't put a stop to it? So
right.
If I'm saying here,
agree. A lot.
Like, that was a good one, buddy.
All right.
And he's standing next to me, I'm not going to let him do that, especially if I see that man is like, he's actually all right. I'm not going to let you do that. So you look at the video footage of what's going on in the Capitol. These dudes are all smiling. They're laughing. They're palling around. It's all a good time. So you're telling me that the Trump supporters, people that are wearing Trump hats, Trump flags, all this stuff, were cool with people. Well,
Johnny. But Johnny, it's the easy argument to compare, because when civil unrest started to happen in Minneapolis, there was a very specific video. There was a gentleman that was wearing all black garb. He was covering his face. He was hiding his appearance.
Right.
And he was at an AutoZone. And he was starting to bust out windows. And because just like you said, it's 2020 at the time, it is so easy. Everybody has a camera on their phone.
Right.
Everybody has the ability to document things. That's why we know what happens to George Floyd. That's why we know what happens to certain people when we didn't know it 40, 50 years ago with Black Panthers being murdered and things like that.
Right.
Is people started taking video and saying, hey, we are here protesting. We're standing on the sidewalk. We don't know who this guy is. We don't know who this guy is that's breaking these windows. And there was a guy that said, I'm going to put my blood down because no, you're not going to make this an excuse for us protesting and acting like we're breaking and demolishing these things. So that's kind of your point, Johnny, is where is that video of the Patriots helping them? Where's that video? Since it was Antifa, where's that video of support for our country and defense of our country? Where is it, that video? And, you know, me and you are on different sides of this. Where the hell are these militia men and women that thump for the Second Amendment, that if they're saying they are watching Antifa attack the Capitol, attack our democracy, this was the time for your Second Amendment.
Right. True.
But
True.
but the other piece to it, because this has started to be the other social media thing, is Tommy Lauren did it, Candace Owens with her dumb ass did it. You know, the only Black person that ever called the NAACP and went on the news because racial harassment was happening to her, and she's the only person that says that racism doesn't exist, but whatever. You literally have people that are blending civil unrest and riots with an act of terror and an act of war against our country's democracy. They're bastardizing and one and minimizing the other, all in the same breath. Because my question, and then, you know, this was in our discussion, is where is this level of restraint during a traffic stop over a license plate light being out? Where is this level of restraint and understanding and threat assessment when a gentleman tells you that he is a concealed weapon carrier? There was one shot fired yesterday in the Capitol, one shot. But I heard about Jacob Blake being such a potential threat that 7 bullets needed to enter his body.
His back.
7 bullets were needed to subdue a threat. 1 bullet. And you can't tell me that, well, I don't care who you call it, Antifa, Trump supporters, I don't care who it is. You can't tell me while officers had to retreat that they weren't in fear of their lives, which would be a rational reason to use lethal force. You cannot tell me that not one person that was in the Capitol yesterday had an object that you could not directly identify as non-lethal. You know, a guy running through a backyard has his cell phone in his hand, he gets shot because you think it's a gun. And you're telling me that during all of this unrest, everybody was sound enough to identify, like, okay, none of these are lethal weapons. I keep hearing about when a gentleman gets shot in the back twice, running away from police officers that had already deployed both of their tasers. So they knew that their tasers had been deployed, but, oh, he has it in his hand and you don't know what he could do with it. So you don't know about the potential threat. So therefore you need to use lethal tactics as a police officer. But then you're telling me that these individuals that broke in through windows, that broke in through doors, all of these different things that you're not worried about their same lethal threat. And again, that's not asking for the response to be the negative. That's saying, use that same thought process when you are dealing with a guy that you get a phone call that he might have had a counterfeit $20 bill. Someone that might have passed off a counterfeit $20 bill, was treated as a criminal, died while handcuffed, and the start excuses. Oh, he died because he was high. He died because he was being too excited and he wouldn't calm down. He died for all of these reasons. I'm sorry, I don't understand it. And that's not a knock on police officers. That's just saying, I know you can do your job. So that's even more evidence that when I don't see it done, I got a fucking question about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I'm just going to add.
Everything doesn't exist that way.
One thing to take into account too, that, you know, was troubling to me in that respect is like how we were saying, we're in the digital age. You know, you really can't do much without it being a matter of record. We have so many posts that we can go back to. Like, we're about to cross that threshold where we're going to see those, you know, back on this day, and they're going to show these posts. So it's like, I'm looking at all these receipts from everybody that told me 6 months ago that if I obeyed the police, if I didn't break the law, I wouldn't die. That's what I need to do as a citizen of the United States, to not be killed by the police. I need to comply, and I need to not break the law to begin with. So
Right.
How is it that when I look at a situation where the floor of the Capitol building was being used, which means the building is on lockdown, automatically, it's on lockdown. And even if it wasn't on lockdown, there are several checks and balances to even get in the building when it's open to the public, that people under the president's suggestion can storm the building, enter the building. Several people are wearing backpacks. So, I mean, you talk about lethal threats, there could be bombs. So,
Your word.
There were 2 bombs, 2 IEDs.
There are responses to this situation where you immediately remove the staff for their protection. So that in itself is an admission that there is a threat level that is necessitating lethal force. So I understand on the outside in the open, you don't want to push this crowd to the point where it does get violent, because there could be people with guns. You don't know. There is too many variables outside. That's fine and well. So like the whole argument where it's like, well, the police let the people in. Like, I'm pretty sure the cops didn't say, hey guys, you want to come inside the Capitol building? That's not how that works. That's not how, you know, so I understand the restraint level outside, but when you enter the building, all bets are off. You are insurgents at that point, you know. So even beyond that, like, again, because my thing is, like you said, I didn't want, like, I wasn't watching the news waiting to see a bunch of people be executed. That's not what I was looking for. But I question how that, like you said, same level of restraint isn't used on the street when you're not dealing with a mob. You're not dealing with people who are physically destroying things to get to you. You're just dealing with a dude you stopped because he may have been doing something wrong. You were dealing with a guy on a bicycle that you think looks suspicious, who has a bag of laundry, who happens to have a gun, but the gun is legal. But he's dead because he had it. And he dropped it, shot him when it was on the ground. So he was not a lethal threat. So we're talking about literal lethal threat. And this goes all the way back to one of our first conversations where Vernon mentioned the fact that the color of my skin makes me a higher threat, period. Because what I look like, the color of I can be 90 pounds soaking wet, but I'm black, so my threat level is increased. And that's a troubling thing. But beyond that, like, what I'm so frustrated with, I mean, I can't tell you how many posts I saw yesterday. Keep it going. Way to go, guys. I love these patriots and what they're doing. I'm like, how can you say these things when I can literally go on your profile right now, scroll down to March, and see you saying when the looting starts, the shooting starts.
Right.
Shouldn't be rioting. Why are you rioting? You're going to tell me that a man couldn't take a knee on the field to bring awareness to people being executed by the police? That wasn't cool. There's a better way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's un-American.
But overthrowing the government is cool. I
Bernie.
mean,
Bernie, bruh.
They hate him. He hated America when he took a knee during a fucking song. I'm sorry for my language tonight.
You good.
A song.
These people.
As a football coach, as a former football player, coach, do you people really understand the level of before a competition? We are talking about a game. He just wanted to sit down at first. That shit wasn't good enough. He just wanted to sit down. Technically, he could have not been out there. And that was so appalling. That was so un-American.
The man at the top, the president of the United States, lambasted this man about his un-American sentiment, how he was just disrespecting the flag. That's what they said.
Disrespecting
the flag.
Right.
Then
you also say, hey guys, let's show our support down at the Capitol. Come on down. Why is it that needed to happen if yesterday was supposed to be the day that all the evidence came to light? Why would you stop the process from happening if today is the day where we all see the light?
I'm going to add this really quick.
It makes sense now. There was a lot of fraud. You guys brought all the evidence to the table. Now I understand. No, it was, we don't have any fraud. Wait a minute. Now we're storming the building. What is going on?
I need Mike Pence to do the right thing.
Right. That's what it boils down to. It boils down to Trump, and let's call it spade a spade. Trump turned against Mike Pence. Mike Pence told Trump that legally he couldn't do anything. And you gotta think.
You know what's a shame? I'm sorry,
go ahead.
You know what's a shame in that is?
I was just saying that.
How did the president not know that?
What you say?
That the shame in that is the president doesn't know that, and this
he doesn't know the Constitution.
I'm not crapping on anybody. The one thing that he was all of our principal, Mr. Mike Horn. The first thing he taught me about it being an administrator. He is my mentor for life. I shed tears when he retired. I promise you, he said, Burton, learn the contract and learn board policy, because those are the two things that you will either use or that will kill you. Those two things, the contracts and board policy.
Right.
So when I would go into a grievance or things like that, I knew what part of the contract was being asked of me, and I knew what was going. I knew if I was going to win or lose. Mm-hmm. So the fact that the president of the United States did not understand that no evidence could be brought forward at that hearing. The only thing that can happen is people get to talk and get on the soapbox. Literally, they can only just have an open mic session.
Right.
But no evidence could be reviewed by anybody else, which that would be irresponsible. If you've ever done jury duty, you get all of the evidence. You get all of the pieces of paper so you can actually see it outside of the testimony. Next, Mike Pence couldn't do a thing.
Right.
That's why this tweet started happening where I hope Mike Pence does the right thing. And I know I'm kind of diverging, but we had a conversation earlier about, and I think Lindsey Graham said today, why was the Capitol not protected more? And here's why I think the Capitol wasn't protected more. First off, it wasn't a protest at the Capitol.
Mm-mm.
It wasn't a protest. So everybody's saying all of the players that were wrong, these idiots, they were good protesters. Some people did wrong. It was only a few. Like we all saw, it was only a few.
Mm-hmm.
And
I had to rebel. It was more than 100 being profiled by FBI this afternoon. It's probably more now since we've been on here.
Right. But the problem that happened was there is a person named Donald Trump that told a crowd of people.
Right.
And just like he always says, I get the largest crowds. I get the largest crowds. They're the biggest crowds in the world. Everybody loves me. He told a crowd of people, So let's say, just like somebody brought up in one of our conversations, we use the law of percentages and averages, right?
Right.
If we say that 2% of people are willing to be extreme or have psychopathic tendencies and all of these negatives, if 2% of people would go to the extreme to either kill or be killed for Donald Trump, that means for every 100 people, we're going to multiply it by 2. So if he has a group of 10,000 people, right?
Mhm.
We are starting to add numbers of people that are going to take siege. So yes, there are people that stayed on the Washington Memorial lawn, but then there was a group of people that started to go. And then outside of the 2%, let's say there's 10% that will follow because they just want to support, or that person walking that way was their damn ride. And now you're talking about, if we're talking about 1,000 people, you just sent 100 to the Capitol. If we're talking about 10,000 people, you just sent 1,000 to the Capitol. And the Capitol was conducting Capitol business as normal. And if you tell me if you're telling me that the security level yesterday is less than it was in 2016, was the security level less than it was in 2012, 2008, you all get where I'm going.
Right.
But they have the exact same security level yesterday that they've had every January when the Electoral College ballots are certified, then I can't find a flaw in that. Because without the verbiage of the outgoing president of the United States, they were still protected.
Right.
But it wasn't even just the verbiage of go there. He didn't say march down there and be heard. Stay peaceful, but make sure they see your faces. I'm a leader. That's something I may say. They need to know and see your faces. When people go to board meetings, because contentious things happen in schools,
mm-hmm.
They say, hey, this is going to be the board's process, but I need you there for support. I need you, when you get a chance to speak. Like you learn the process. But no, he told them, it's almost like when he was trying to punk Brad and Ryan, where he said, hey, they're laughing at you. You know Stacey Abrams is laughing at you. Oh, people think you're weak. Like that's some shit we would do at times. And like, hey man, you know what he said about you. I wouldn't take that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's childish as fuck. And that's the president of the United States. And the people that support him and disguise it as anything other than childish behavior and ignorance, you are childish and ignorant too. It's not that I'm negative towards you. We can still be friends on Facebook. I just think you're a fucking idiot. I know I'm smarter than you. I know that you're dumb as fuck. And I know that you're a zealot. So it's some people I hope they're listening.
Be intelligent, but you're choosing to forego that intelligence to further your zealot cause. You want this to
Johnny's on the right track.
I don't believe in my heart of hearts that these people are. What I believe is that 4 months from now, they will all regress back to the pre-Trump era versions of themselves, where not socially acceptable to do the things that you're doing. Now, this isn't a situation where people were turned. It's not like these people were turned to be this way. It's always been there, but we've had a societal framework that told you, your inner monologue told you, you shouldn't do these things in public. You shouldn't say these things in public. Now we have a situation where for the last 4 years, we have somebody, even when he was running, I'm the dude that's going to say what I want to say. I'm the dude that's going to say what needs to be said. You should be that way too. Obama is not he was not a Christian, he's not American, all this stuff. I'm gonna say this stuff. I don't have anything to back it up, but I'm gonna say it because it's my right to say it under the First Amendment. I'm gonna do these things.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's like, hey man, I want to do that. I want to go to my job and tell that guy that Black Lives Matter is a Marxist movement and Black lives don't matter, all lives matter. I want to be able to say that to a black man's face and not have to fear persecution.
Hey, I'm gonna interrupt you real quick, Johnny. People would never say that because that would show bigotry, ignorance, and lack of tolerance towards others. So they cloak it and they'll just say BLM. So I just want to always put it out there. Every time people put BLM, you're trying to hide it. But if you say out loud what it represents, you would know that you are a racist person. You don't have to you don't have to lynch someone to be racist. But that's why they say it like that, Johnny. It's intentional also.
I hear you. And a lot of times I feel like a lot of those people that you dealt with and deal with in your daily life typically would not elicit that type of activity because they understand that it is not the social standard. In the last 4 years, we have shifted our social standard to promote more abrasive behavior. And then when I give you the behavior, the argument becomes you should not respond to my actions. If I am doing something to you, you should not respond to it. Because if you do, you are weak. That has become the new narrative. I can walk into your house, tell you that all of your decorations are terrible, your food tastes terrible, your house smells terrible, and you shouldn't live in this neighborhood. And you shouldn't respond negatively to that because it's my right to say that. That has become our new social standard. And a lot of people have been waiting for this to happen. I've been waiting my entire life to hear a guy like Vernon say, you know what? I think the Second Amendment's great and I'm going to adopt it now. So if we got a president that somehow brainwashed him into believing that, I probably would support that guy. And I probably would vote for that guy. And if the people that don't believe in the Second Amendment decided this dude is dangerous because he's brainwashing people, we need to get him out of here, and he lost, I might break because I'm so strong and firm in my belief in the Second Amendment. I might have a moment of weakness myself where I say, what can I do to help this man stay in office? What can I do to keep this fight going? And if I don't have any ammunition, it becomes mental gymnastics. And now we're in the mental gymnastic phase. Like, well, if this happened, it's not the outcome that I desire, so there has to be a reason why it occurred. So let me levy these things. And I'm going to say these things because I can get on a video on YouTube right now, put on a lab coat and say, hey, if you snort orange juice up your nose, you won't get COVID. I'm wearing a doctor's uniform, so it must be true. And then it becomes a picture where someone puts the text of what I said and probably changes some of the words and make a meme out of it. And then it spreads and people start to believe it. And I guarantee you at least 1,000 people after 4 months will have snorted orange juice. I didn't say that it was going to work for a fact. I just said that, hey, trust me because I look like a guy you should trust. So
but what's even scarier with people, that, Johnny, is
Tide Pods, for Christ's sake.
The scary part are and we've seen it from people on our outer circles from difficult discussions, people on our inner circles. The scary part to me is when people cloak it in, well, I'm just trying to get the information out and let people derive their own point of view. Or it is, well, they cloak it in, hey, does anybody know if this is true? Once you share it, it doesn't become any less true.
Right.
And before you share it, you shouldn't have to ask people if it's true. You shouldn't have to search by posting something of if it's true. Like, and I know Eric says I use straw man arguments, and I actually say it's not an argument, it's just a metaphor for a comparison. It's like me posting the score of last night's basketball game and saying, is it true? It's like, no. Okay. Like that's pretty concrete. Yeah, you have it from ESPN. That's the score. You have all the players, like scoring totals and everything. That's real easy. No, it's true.
No,
it's easy to solve.
You posted a picture of the score and doctored the picture and changed the score, and then said that's what would be the same because you're passing back and then saying, is it true? I just want to know, or I just want you to decide. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Isn't it the responsibility of you, the person spreading this information, to verify that first?
Right.
Like, I honestly think I would get out here as a Second supporter and make a claim based on the Second Amendment that I don't know to be true. I don't want to look like an idiot. I don't want to be proven wrong. So I'm going to do everything I can to make sure the information that I provide is on the up and up if I can. You know, it's like, it's almost like you know, because that's why I asked the question before, do you think this misinformation is malicious intent? Because you know, putting it out there is just like poisoning a well.
The answer is yes
saying,
on that.
I'm putting poison in our well to see what happens. I just want to see what happens. You know what's going to happen. People are going to get sick because you put poison in the water. So spreading bad information, especially information when you read it, any normal person would read what they see and immediately have questions. Kamala Harris supports abortion up to 7 years old. That doesn't sound like it makes sense. Let me question that. Maybe I should look into that to verify. Because that's, I mean, I'm not, you know, I don't, like I said, I'm not an educator. I don't get into the whole, you know, go into the library, pulling cards to cite references. But I hear information that immediately makes me question its validity. You've told me something that to a standard objective thinking individual, that
it don't make sense.
First thing I'm gonna do is look it up. And you know what? Right. I know you said like YouTube videos, it's not a credible basis, but the first thing I'll do is go to Google and just type it in and see what pops up. Like, well,
yeah.
Generally, first thing pop out is YouTube videos.
So when I type in something, is the first thing I see Fox News, is the first thing I see CNN, is the first thing I see The Guardian, is the first thing I see The Herald, or is the first thing I see is some random website from one central location that operates exclusively from there. So you're telling me this news source that's located in Tennessee has the inside track on voter fraud in Georgia? I don't understand that. How are you the top? How are you the leading source of this news and not anyone from locally around that area? So those are the things I look for when I want to do a little bit of research. Like if I see something that looks preposterous, I immediately type it into a search engine to see what pops up. Do I get more preposterous information? Do I get articles that literally debunk it? Because that's another thing that happens. Like when you type in, you know, voter registration numbers, impossible for Biden, the first thing you get is a table showing you why that's not true. So no one's even going that far. So you see it, you're anti-abortion, you see someone post that, and I see people's responses to those posts. How can the Dems do this? And I'm like, wait a minute. How is that your first question? How is it not, is this true? This does not sound like it makes sense. Like if I went out today on social media and said, Donald Trump has T-Rex arms, he's reptilian. So you're telling me that the anti-Trump people, like Vernon, you would read that and be like, it must be true because I don't like
Hell yeah. I knew he was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
You know, so it's like I don't understand that level of
QAnon.
You know, so it's like that's the thing that gets me. It's like you don't even want to fact check this information. So
it sounds good. You just want to hear
put it out there because you want to have an open discussion about it. You put it out because you want to confirm it. No, you just want to spread that information. You want to keep it going. That's what you're doing. Like I
want to believe
start a rumor that said I'm dating Selma Hayek. It's not true. I've never been in the same room as her.
But so old. It's probably some of my students like, who the fuck is Selma
Hayek? You can put that out there. I could Photoshop myself in a picture with her and all that, but it's like, dude, no one's gonna be like, man, I've never seen Selma Hayek mention this dude ever. Like, they're married though? Like, let me type that in Google. They don't do that. I don't understand the irresponsibility of us getting to a point now in our country where this many people have heard something that can't, I mean, we are in a level of almost religious
zealotry.
Like like Donald Trump said, hey, Jesus is Lord. Okay, that's a faith-based statement. You either believe it or you don't. We're not going to have a brass tacks debate on that because there's no tangible information to really lend toward it to say one person is right or the other. You either believe it or you don't. There is information you can cite, but again, it's still based on faith. So we have a faith-based argument today about our election, which is comprised of American citizens casting their vote, the entire basis of what this country is founded on. And we have a faith-based argument that questions its validity. And these same people call themselves patriots, say they bleed on the flag to keep the stripes red. We got to support the troops, Blue Lives Matter, law and order, all of these things. How did all of that stuff that we were hearing 6 months ago, when I'm begging you, I'm like, you can't tell me you don't see something wrong with a lady getting murdered in her sleep. You can't tell me that that's okay. I'm arguing with these people to now today hear those same people say that these guys are doing what's right. I don't get that. So I feel like at the end of the day, you're literally saying anything you can say to suit your current situation.
Right.
So I'm dealing with a group of people that are willing to hold their beliefs true when they're convenient. It makes it very difficult to have a discussion. And that's the problem I have with not being able to get a guest on for stuff like this, because that's my complaint. You know, I have been the same since anyone's dealt with me on social media. You can go on my social media and literally scroll down till you get to the first day I started it. You're going to see the same content. You're going to see
well over 10 years ago, Johnny.
Bro,
well over 10 years ago.
Change, but overall, you're going to see the same themes from me relating to my belief structure. You're not going to see me one day say, Second Amendment, man, I got to defend my life. And then all of a sudden, you know, somebody's getting robbed and they drop a roll of money that rolls to my foot. And then I'm like, oh man, we got to do something about these guns, because I just got $1,000 for somebody getting robbed. So we got to do something about these guns and get them off the street because I want to get more money. I can't crush my morals and my foundation for that. So you're telling me Donald Trump being president is more important than everything you claim to stand for. So today, Donald Trump says law and order. Tomorrow, Donald Trump says storm the Capitol. Your morals from yesterday are superseded by the fact that he said something different. So
today,
now you're just exalting Donald Trump. You don't stand for the United States. You don't stand for law and order. You stand for Donald Trump. How did we get to a point in our society where people are choosing a man over their own morals, over their own fiber?
Well, it comes to two things for me, Johnny and Dear. First, we saw a lot this week, or in the past, I would say 10 days, when Mitch McConnell stopped the vote to pass a bill. I mean, he stopped the whole vote. It wasn't like, okay, we're going to hear things, and then if the vote doesn't go one way, he stopped the process of even voting for the stimulus to be raised up to $2,000 to aid Americans. And the same people that days earlier, after Trump said $600 isn't enough, thank you, President Trump, we love you, President Trump, the same people had no energy towards Mitch McConnell. Zero energy. And you can literally point that one person is the reason why Americans are not getting more money. Then they want to deflect and say, well, we shouldn't be sending money to overseas. That shit doesn't matter. If you were going to get $2,000, if we took the money, if the government took the money away from overseas, you were still getting $2,000. He stopped that. No energy. Second thing that blows my mind with all this, like you're saying, Johnny, is the president of the United States of America has, and De'Aaron did it well, as soon as Barr said, I found no election fraud, you knew he wasn't going to be working too much longer.
Right.
Literally, he is operating in such a dictator capacity that you knew once he started tweeting, the responsibility was on Mike Pence, that it was going to be this all of a sudden attack on Mike Pence if he didn't do something, you had people blaming Mike Pence. I swear I looked at Mike Pence's Twitter today. He tweeted about everything. I've seen him called a traitor. I've seen doctored images that he should be hung. He's
Call
been
him
called
Judas. They called him Judas.
Benedict Arnold. Like, what are you talking about, people? Like, what are you talking about? And that's where you're saying, Johnny, the love for Trump is so separate. And in this country, we have a divide. And I keep hearing people say, we're so divided. We're so divided. And not one of those people, usually conservative, can point out that the reason for the divide, especially the negative nature of the divide, is Donald Trump. I'm giving him all my energy. It's Donald Trump. I've said it for 4.5 years. It's Donald Trump is the reason for the divide. The fact that people feel that you can use derogatory terms such as libtard, and then our friend Eric was posting rhinos, which he learned from Donald Trump recently, but he was spelling it like the animal instead of the acronym, which also shows lack of fucking intelligence. Sorry, man. I had to get that one out. Because
you good.
If you're going to be an asshole, at least be good at it. Just be good at it. But when we're talking about things such as the divide, Democrats and Republicans have different beliefs about tax dollars. Democrats and Republicans have different beliefs about how Christianity should influence government, how the moral compass is different from what my personal beliefs are based on my religion, how those compare to the First Amendment, as you had a long discussion, Johnny, how the First Amendment protects you to choose your religion free of the government telling you something, and not that the government should be influenced by a religion. All of those things. That is a normal difference and divide. Me and De'Aaron have completely different points of view about my undefeated Michigan Wolverines and your bottom of the Big Ten Michigan State.
We ain't bombing it no more. So go ahead.
But that's okay. That's a difference of opinion based on experience.
Then if I step in and say, hey, De'Aaron, you should go to Vernon's house and tell him how you feel about your Spartans. Then it becomes a fight and there's blood on the ground. I'm a problem. I have caused a problem. That's the issue we have here, is that we have been in a situation in this country where we've had, disagreements for decades, where people believe different things. We've all been able to do this. All of a sudden now it becomes a narrative that if I'm not getting my way, I'm being wrong. If I'm being wrong, you're wrong. You should not be able to wrong me. And it's just like, I don't get it. Like, I don't get it. Again, I can't stress this enough. And I'm arguing with people and they're like, well, you just vote blindly. I'm like, do you understand that I voted for Donald Trump?
I love seeing it too.
Yeah, people who's like, huh?
I'm just like,
you saying all this and huh?
Like, really? I did the thing. So it's like, I voted for this man for my own reasons. Call me a one-issue voter, whatever. That's regardless. It doesn't matter. That's not the conversation we're having. But the thing is, you're going to sit here and tell me that because I'm not on this campaign, that if I didn't get my way, hey, when I turned my ballot in, someone grabbed my ballot and switched it out and put a different one in.
It was so the one thing in 2020, as an educator, a lot of things have been bad. I mean, we ended the school year in 2020 in ways that nobody ever has. The entire country's educational system shut down. There was no student in person at the time of graduation for any high school student. All 50 states shut down academics and schooling. Completely different platforms from what we're traditionally used to. And my current boss, my superintendent, he has a list of silver linings. And I really like this. I'm not just buttering up to my boss, but because there have been so many honest positives that have come from certain elements of the pandemic and how we utilize technology in schools and all of these other things. And what just bothers me to the core with all of these things is how we can't find the common ground when it's easy to see what is divisive and what is the thing that is separating us all. But we continue to say, why are we divided? Why do we have these issues? Why are we looking at, like, why are people looking at democratic cities burning when you don't even have true evidence of it? And I'm not saying there weren't riots, but I'm talking in our lifetime, we watched the Rodney King LA riots for days. We watched Rodney King and Reginald Denny. We are from Detroit. Malice Green was murdered. The police officers that killed Malice Green went to jail.
Wait a minute, though. This is the thing. It's not that people are just saying the city's burned. What we're getting is people saying, why was it okay? When was it okay?
Where
It has never been okay.
What
How
democratic
even happening? So it's like, well, when Black Lives Matter and Antifa, they riot, it's okay, but now it's not. I'm like, when was it okay? So all those people that got arrested over the summer, they're getting their records expunged? Is that what's happening? Because I'm waiting for
20,000 people?
You know, that's what I don't get. So it's like, how do you self-create a narrative that is an argument based? How do I create an argument that doesn't exist to argue against you? Like, if we're going to talk Michigan football, I don't know anything about Michigan football.
It's
so
the greatest thing ever.
Talking about Terminator 2. Like, that's what we're doing, and it don't make no sense.
Right.
Schwarzenegger, like, wait, whoa, that doesn't. What does that have to do with anything? So it's like, you know, and they say this with such conviction, and the conviction is the thing that kills me. It's like, you are making this statement like this is just what you believe to be true for your life. Because if you ask me a question about self-defense, I'm gonna give you a heartfelt answer because I believe it. But that answer is not going to be hyperbole, and I'm not going to turn that hyperbole into this fictitious fact. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have people that support the gun community, and they like feel like when I put on this gun, I'm safe. You know, if that gang wants to roll up on me, I'm gonna drop them all. You have people that think like that feel like just the fact that they bought a gun is enough to keep them safe, and they don't do any due diligence to actually train with the weapon, make sure they understand how the weapon works and how to fix the weapon if they have a failure. They just feel like, I own a weapon, I am now John Wick. And it's very troubling when I have to explain to those people, like, look, man, that's not how this works. Like, put your gun in your holster right now, draw. Do you understand that I already have my weapon on you now? You're dead. So that scenario that you created in your head to tell you that it's all good enough doesn't play out because you've done nothing to earn it. I had an altercation at work today. This dude got really loud with my manager to the point where I merely just stood directly in front of him. I invaded his personal space. I stood directly in front of him, looked at him eye to eye. You need to calm down right now. I don't know anything about this man. He's comparable to my size, and it's very possible he could have hit me, I could have dropped, and I'm not here to do difficult discussions tonight. But guess what? I'm confident enough in my ability to defend myself. And that confidence that I have in my soul is based on absolutely nothing. I didn't go to the gym yesterday. I haven't been training mixed martial arts, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I just know that I have enough determination, and I know for a fact that I can take a punch, that is enough to put me in that position where I feel that I can defend myself if I needed to. So what we have today is people that feel like they could go to court today, stand in a courtroom in front of a Supreme Court judge and plead a case on why there was fraud. And I don't understand that those same people, when you ask them the simple question of based on what, that they can't provide an answer. So I'm like, you do understand then, if you were to go to court today, that you would lose. Because that's how the real world works. You can't just go to court and say, I believe it in my heart. I believe it in my heart of hearts that this happened. I believe that these people counted these ballots. They wrote ballots in. They did all this stuff. So it's like you believe it to the point where you are almost, and I don't want to say this because I always try to be objective. I always try to be the guy in the middle. I don't like to antagonize the people I don't understand. But we are getting to a point where I have repeatedly asked for clarification to understand, and people are now telling me they don't have time to give it, or they're
Right.
not going to give it. It won't matter if they give it. It's going to go nowhere if they give it. So you've given me no choice because you refuse to help me understand your position, to where now I have to say, you are breeding psychosis. You know, they
Okay.
But
insanity is to do the same thing and expect different results. The definition of insanity is to put your life on the line for a fact that you can't verify. A fact. Because I mean, I don't want to offend you, De'Aaron. I don't want to offend you, Vernon, because I know both of you are religious people. But I personally would say that you could not relate a religious faith to fact. It is faith. That is the very foundation of faith. It is what you believe, and it's your moral core, and that's what you believe. But to then state, I know for a fact that this text here specifically happened. I know it happened. That is a questionable thing, because I can question it because you don't have anything to provide on that fact. So we have, like, I don't see how we've gotten to the point where you are talking about tangible things. You were talking about physical ballots. You were talking about physical locations. You were talking about physical time periods. Yet you can't give me anything but faith-based argument. I don't understand that. This is not 1932 where you can get out here and steal an entire building if you wanted to, and people wouldn't know about it. Everyone knows everything. I can go on right now and look at Google News and find out somebody tripped crossing the street in Portland, Oregon, walking across the street. Right now, it's live feed showing me that it happened. But how can you tell me that all of this stuff happened and there's not one piece of evidence showing someone doing something wrong? Show me somebody in a trench coat handing somebody a manila folder that has a ballot in it. Show me that. Give me something. Give me something. Not some dude posted on Twitter that he was in the room where they were counting and saw people write down biting on a ballot and turn it in. Like, you can't use that. That is not evidence. I can tell you that Jesus Christ himself wrote biting on a ballot and put it down. I can tell you that. That doesn't
make it true.
So you got to understand, like, if you're going to have this argument to the point where you're talking about lives being lost, treason, people going to jail, people being charged with death, that you
going back to your point, Blue Lives Matter. An officer succumbed to his injuries today.
Wow.
Where's my say his name tweets? Where's my say his name post? I don't want to call people out, but I got a guy that in the Republican Party browbeat us to death about a retired police officer that was shot and killed at a because you don't want to say Black Lives Matter. You want to tie it into an organization. At a BLM riot, an officer was killed. Say his name. His wife she is a widow now. There's an officer that died today. That died. And guess what? My energy hasn't changed. My energy hasn't changed because unlike people it's just like the defund the police thing. When you want to bastardize something, you will interpret it however you want to. You will take whatever the message is and you will say that the message isn't done right. Colin Kaepernick is much better example than defund the police, because when he was sitting his ass in week 1 on the bench right next to the Gatorade, a cameraman in the press box found him and posted that, why is Colin Kaepernick not standing up for the national anthem? He didn't make a spectacle of it. He didn't want attention about it. All he wanted to do is do his protest his way. I learned from my great college coach, Dan Simro. He never made us pray to Jesus Christ as a team. He would always say, each man in his own way. And I went to a Christian university, but he would say, each man in his own way. Colin Kaepernick chose to find his way. And then when people didn't accept that, he reached out to someone to find out what is the most respectful way to not convolute my message, can I send this to the public? And a serviceman told him, this is the most honorable way. But then we bastardize, we villainize Colin Kaepernick. Because no matter what, we want, and when I say we, I'm just talking about
in general. Yeah.
Because people want to find that way of calling him an enemy, to say that what he's doing is wrong. So there was literally no way that Colin Kaepernick could have protested in order for people to say, we're listening to you, we understand what you're doing. No. And we had a show on this about take my sports and take my politics and separate them. We had that show early on. Take my sports, take my politics, and separate them. Right. And it's just interesting to me because defund the police. Oh, they shouldn't have used defund. They shouldn't have been. But I want to go back to what you're saying, Johnny. Defund the police. Shouldn't that spark a conversation? What do you mean by defund the police? How should we defund the police? Can you elaborate? Are you saying to eradicate and eliminate police forces? Tell me more of what your passion is for defund the police. That's what a person will be saying if they had the same energy as, oh, I see a piece of paper on Twitter that has no header, that has no notarized signature, that has no stamp. Hey, is this true? Let me share it and ask my Facebook friends, is this true? And then I'm going to get my first cousin that is married to my second cousin once removed, and he's going to say, absolutely. But you know what? Facebook is going to take it down because they don't want to know the truth. And it's just getting to that point where in 2021, let's have the same energy where we're not trying to do things that fit our system and our beliefs that contradict what we did not only days before, but weeks before. I keep hearing that Nancy Pelosi's such a bitch. I keep hearing she's such a horrible woman. But I keep asking people, what has she done that's impacted you? Oh, she ripped up the paper while the president was talking. She doesn't agree with him. She's showing I don't agree with him.
Made fun of a handicapped man on video.
No, at a rally. At a rally.
To thunderous.
And they'll excuse that. They will excuse that.
But
that's
ripping up a
fine.
sheet of paper is just, you can't have it. That's the straw that broke the camel's back.
The energy just isn't meeting.
It
I'm
ain't
not
the
getting the same energy.
No. Like
I want to add this.
I lost a
wanna
friend
add this.
of 10 years. Lost a friend of 10 years about the riots and how they related to Antifa and Black Lives Matter, how it was all their fault and that nothing that their message was supposed to breed matters because of the means in which that they were trying to spread it. Lost a friend. Can't talk to him anymore.
That wasn't a friend to begin with, but go ahead.
It was. We were friends, but it just came to a point where I'm like, all right, clearly we disagree to the point where it's just never going to work. I'm done. I got nothing else to say. That same person, way to go, boys. Where is the same energy? I'm looking at pictures of dudes walking around with podiums, dudes sitting at Pelosi's desk, people posting pictures of her computer screen, which has classified information on it. Crime.
Stealing her mail.
Crime.
Taking her mail out the Capitol.
Yeah, taking property out.
Right.
All of these things happen, and this is supposed to be how a patriot performs a duty. So if your goal was to be an actual patriot and take up arms against the government because you felt the government was no longer speaking for you, how does stealing a podium accomplish that goal? How does standing inside of the U.S. Capitol with the Confederate flag waving it accomplish that goal? Where is the patriotism in these acts? We didn't go in there and take the Capitol. We didn't go in there and say, all right, we're about to make some changes because stuff's not going the way we need it to go here. No, you went in there and just vandalized. You literally did the thing that you were telling me 6 months ago, invalidated my campaign for my life to matter.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter because we're looting. It doesn't matter because we're rioting. And what did we say back then? What did we say, Vernon? Whoa, whoa, whoa. We're protesting.
Right.
Cats over there are rioting.
Right.
I'm not rioting, but the narrative is always the protesters.
The protesters, everything.
Hey,
got linked
hold
to
on,
protesters.
Johnny,
The conversation and say, what's up with these rioters? Whoa, everyone wasn't rioting. There were people outside, but I'm talking about the people that were inside. So that's who we're talking about. And I asked the question again, what about these rioters? Well,
I'm gonna ask this, Johnny, if you don't mind for a second. The one thing that I realized today, going through Twitter, a lot of these people didn't think consequences would happen. That's what it boils down to. I won't say everybody, but a lot of people didn't think consequences was going to happen for doing this. And what we're seeing right now, and I shared this in the group chat today, where one guy was bragging about his son going into the Capitol and putting a MAGA hat and a Trump flag in the statue of Jimmy Carter.
Gerald
He
Ford,
posted that yesterday.
former Michigan Wolverine.
Mm-hmm. And the guy who posted was a Michigan Wolverine fan, by the way.
Hey, man.
He posted this morning
Every family got flaws.
asking, that's true too. He posted this morning asking, why was the FBI contacting him? A few hours later, him and his son's Twitter account deleted.
Well, I mean, you got the guy that got fired from his job because he had on his goddamn ID badge running through the fucking Capitol when he's not supposed to.
Yep.
Hey, no.
And and the thing is, we went. Let's just say we were doing that. The things these people are doing, I wouldn't be doing. I wouldn't be posting my picture in there. I won't be wearing my ID.
I'm
I won't
trying
be
to
bragging
find.
about it.
Post
Go
a
ahead.
picture because you'd be dead.
Hold on.
True.
Hey, no lie, De'Aaron. I looked it up today, De'Aaron. I tried to find pictures of looters celebrating looting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm serious. I was trying to find. I went city specific. What was the zone in Seattle? The zone that they created without police.
I know
Autonomy
what you're
zone.
talking about, though. Right.
No pictures, no selfies, no social media posts, no hashtags, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
The brashness for people to act like this was their tour of the United States Capitol is one part that's appalling. But then when I'm also just so appalled. Everybody should know. I think Kyle Rittenhouse. I want law to happen to him. I'm still going to beat everything into lawmakers in.
Pull it back just a little bit, Johnny, because we can't see it clearly.
Yeah, but it's the guy that took the podium.
Patriot.
Right.
But Kyle Rittenhouse, I was animate about how irresponsible his mom was. His parents. Like, we grew up in the 80s. It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? Like, that's our life.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, or really today, after Ashley, I can't remember her name, doesn't matter because I don't know terrorist names other than like Bin Laden. When she was shot, this young man went out into the steps of the Capitol and he started spinning his story. They shot her in the neck. She didn't even do anything. Then he went on to the news, said his name, said he was from New Jersey. This human cannot, I promise you, if this human
I seen
vote, If he voted in 2020, it was his first time ever voting. It was his first time ever executing his right as a citizen of the United States to vote in a presidential election. It is no question. How irresponsible are we that we, even as parents, and when I say we, I mean Americans, that we forget all of our virtues of even protecting family. We lose all of our virtues. Like Kyle Rittenhouse was protecting property. And that's why, Johnny, your point earlier, absolutely spot on. Kyle Rittenhouse went from Illinois to Kenosha, Wisconsin. And people out there in the Facebook world, don't act like you knew where Kenosha, Wisconsin was. You know Milwaukee, Madison, and maybe Oshkosh. And then you say that this young man was a patriot from going from Illinois to Kenosha to protect the building. Yet all these patriots were requested to come to DC by the president. And not one patriot stopped our democracy from being infiltrated and having insurgents in there. Like, come on. That is not the same energy. I saw my friend Buddy, and it's not because he's my buddy. His name is Buddy. And I saw him posting about shooting earlier this week. And he kept posting like, you know, in case something happens, this is what we're going to need to be able to do. And for me, I just look at that and just see a clown act. Johnny, I swear to God, me and you, if we ever had odds and we were going to fight, I need to put some rules out in place before. You leave all your shit at home. like we need to settle this disagreement like we were back on Lincoln and Thompson. And I'm not gonna have any parts in anything outside of that. We're gonna have time limits and rules. And the irresponsibility of us as a civil society is what I think we're talking about right now. The irresponsibility of us believing in everything that we have evidence of true. I got a good friend, just brought him into the chat today, that says all politicians are corrupt. I asked one of my friends the other day that said Democrats run on the platform of supporting abortion. And I just said, I don't understand. You keep saying supporting abortion and then you mention Planned Parenthood. And just from a simple Google search, just go on Planned Parenthood's website, they provide more. So you can disagree with the abortion part, but they still provide more. Mm-hmm. And it's just that lack of responsibility and that blind. I'm going to close my eyes and follow a political party. And then I'm going to follow this guy. I've been really anxious to see. We kind of heard it from some senators yesterday. I'm really anxious to see. I don't think the Trump supporting group is going to die. It's about as big as the Libertarian Party. That's what I don't think people. If they were to secede from being Republicans, say we are not Republicans, you rhinos are a joke. We're going to be Trumpers. That will be about the same size as any other third party. But I'm interested to see where the morals and values and energy of the Republican Party will stand after all of this. Where you can't tell me that murder is wrong. You can't tell me that we live by the Bible and we consistently do things that are contrary to the Bible. You can't tell me that. And it's tough with what we saw yesterday, but I think I stayed up late last night. So after we log off of here, I'm about to snooze. But I stayed up I wanted to actually see Mike Pence confirm the election. Mm-hmm. Like, I wanted to see it last night. And it was so interesting to me because I looked at Lindsey Graham and like he moved me. And what's interesting is, and I think this is the best part, but also the worst part, is I haven't agreed with one thing Lindsey Graham has done. I wanted him to lose his reelection. I wish people in South Carolina would have booted him. Mitch McConnell, I wish they would have booted him. I don't understand what they were doing in Kentucky. But I heard those two gentlemen's words, and I was absolutely moved. I wish they did a little bit more, but I was moved by their words. But then I brought myself to reality, and I said, why now? Why now? And that's where, like you're saying, Johnny, when I see people sprinting to say that those were Antifa, like sprinting to post the same one source of information, it makes me really question people. And I'm not calling people racist, but it makes me question, what is your value system truly? Because it is opposite of everything that you've already said.
Mm-hmm.
It's opposite.
That's the thing.
Like I'm really patriotic. That shit that happened yesterday, I got a Black Lives Matter flag. My wife got it. I got a Black Lives Matter mask. It flies in front of our house every day. I literally was going to stop at Ace Hardware to make sure I could get another flag holder, and I was going to fly our American flag. Because ever since November 7th, I thought America was back. You don't want tax dollars to go to Planned Parenthood. That's a difference with taxes. You don't want tax dollars to go towards other countries. You think that, we shouldn't be paying for dreamers to stay in America. That's a difference of opinion about what our tax dollars do. Like we said in the chat, I told a parent one time, if you pay my salary, I'll give you a quarter back. Like tax dollars get split up. I'm willing to use my tax dollars. Other people aren't. That's okay. But I'm not willing to let our democracy get attacked. I'm not willing to let diplomacy, even in our discourse, get attacked. At the professional, at our highest level.
That's what I'm saying, dude. Like, I'm not an officer of the law. And there's absolutely no reason I would have been at the Capitol at the time. But had I been, there's absolutely no way I would have stood for that. This is our country. I love this country. It doesn't matter who's at the top or who's the president at the time. I love this country. And to see what happened yesterday and then see this thunderous applause from my peers stating that this was somehow a morally admirable action. And I'm just like, bruh, what are you saying? Like, are you saying this because you literally want to get talking points on your social media? You want to get buzz? You know people are going to respond because what you just said is stupid and they're going to make issue with it. You want to get that traction on your page. I just made a post that got 700 comments and they're all saying that you're off base. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I don't get it. Again, if you are a patriot and you are fighting for something, that does not turn into looting. So this is the same energy. I'm giving that same energy they were giving 6 months ago. You said you wanted to protest the election, yet your end is to steal podiums and other material from the. What was that going to accomplish? Were the senators going to come from their cubbyhole and say, you know what, you took my podium, bro. I guess you're right. We're going to give it to Trump now. I need that podium. I really need it really bad. It doesn't make any sense. What is your end game? There was no end game. You just went in there to incite. So again, don't call yourself a patriot if you are nothing but a common thug. And that's what you are. So if you want to say that all the protesters, the Marxist protesters that are saying that Black Lives Matter, this radical statement that they're making, are wrong, how in the hell are you going to justify the nonsense that we saw yesterday? Not to mention, people died. There are lives lost. You are telling me the President of the United States suggested to people to do something that likely would put their lives in danger. People actually died from it, and no one cares. Where is the support from the Trump people who lost a Trump supporter member? A part of your ranks is gone. Where is the remorse? Where is the say her name? Where is that? I don't understand. So it's literally like everyone's spinning on their morals. It's not even a two-sided coin. You have a die right now where you're just throwing that die to land wherever it lands, and that today is where you stand.
Right.
And that to me does not make any sense. I just don't understand how Donald Trump, where did you come from to now be in a position where you can tell people that water tastes like chocolate and they'll start posting memes that water tastes like chocolate? I don't understand it. What is the goal? Why do you follow this man this way? Because he's a man. He's a tangible man standing here. I see posts that say that this man is the next coming of Jesus. I see posts that God wants Donald Trump to be president. Why would God be involved when the affairs of a United States election? Jesus was not American. That don't make no sense. So I'm like, you're saying this, and it's like you hear it, and you want to just respond with, "You're joking, right? This is a good gag," but the gag is going on far too long. So I don't get it, and I want to understand it. For the life of me, I want to understand it, but no one wants to have that conversation with me when I question it because they don't want to be questioned. But it just blows my mind when I see, like, literally, if I could hack Donald Trump's Twitter and it was still active, I would literally like just start going to companies like, look, man, for $25,000, I'll tweet that all of my supporters should buy your product, and they're gonna fucking buy it.
Mhm.
And I don't understand that. Like, I don't like, for Biden to have gotten all of this corruption, all of this widespread fraud. Where are the people that are drinking Biden's Kool-Aid? Where are the people ready to just tear down walls for Biden? Where are the people that are out here that just want to, hey man, I'm going to fight the good fight for Biden because you're trying to unseat him for office? Why aren't they marching? Why aren't they doing all of this cultist stuff? Because he doesn't have those followers. So if he doesn't have a cult background, why would you assume that this corruption is so high level? You're telling me everyone is involved. Mike Pence has been right beside Donald Trump every day. Now all of a sudden he's an enemy combatant because he didn't do what Trump asked him to do, which he can't do. So what is happening now? I mean, it's like the fantasy that people have created for their existence around Trump is so mind-boggling. And I understand where you're coming from, Vernon, where you say that the Trump base won't die, and it's very possible they could become an offshoot division. But I still feel at the end of the day, without Trump at the top, I don't feel people are going to be comfortable being as abrasive as they are and have been in the last 4 years. Because you go back 4 years before Donald Trump was president, when everyone was pissed about Obama, because you had that same energy back then when Obama was president. I don't like Obama. I can't say it was because he's black, so I'll say it was because he's Muslim or because he's not American, because he's skinny, because he plays basketball.
He wore a tan suit.
Mhm.
He wore a tan. Oh, he didn't salute. In the picture I saw, the still image, he didn't salute the soldier that was standing there at Air Force One. He didn't salute the soldier in the still image. All right, well, where's the video? Well, he should be. They should always catch the salute. Oh, really? But those, I also, and I promise, I tell people, I taught people and coach people how to do hand-to-hand combat in wrestling. It's so interesting how many Patriots we know that sat their ass at home today. And they're getting all their third-person accounts of what happened yesterday. But they're the Patriots that had to take their ass to work. But we're all sheep, too. They can't even go to the bathroom at work without telling their boss. They got to call off in order to be sick. But we're sheep. And it's those things that, the disrespect that has permeated itself for the last 4 years are the main reason that, and I'm not saying that I would have ever voted Republican, but I know 100%, and I said the difference when people say, well, I can't vote for Hillary, so that's why I voted for Trump. I 1,000% voted against Trump.
Right.
But I don't equally think that Joe Biden isn't responsible enough individual to be the president of the United States. That's where I think I see a difference is I'm okay with the candidate I voted for because I think with experience, with understanding of how politics run, with being in Washington for 4 decades, all of these things, I think that he can get the job done. I don't understand the people that see the irresponsibility that presented itself in order to even become a presidential candidate, permeated itself in what made him the president or the Republicans' nominee to getting voted in. I don't understand how we lived in that world. Going back to it, where you, even like Ted Cruz, buddy, your wife should never want to lay in the same bed with you ever again. When a person calls your wife ugly and you don't lay hands on them, I don't get that. But
let me ask you a quick question, real quick, because I see that there's a question in the comments, and I'm not even going to bring up the Second Amendment thing or the Trump thing. I'm just going to ask a question because someone did finally ask a question.
All right, go ahead.
Get your opinion. They are asking, what do you think about the effort to use the 25th Amendment?
I think personally, we're at the point that we seriously need to have a discussion. Do I think it's going to happen? With so many people who are actually quitting his cabinet, I don't think it's going to be used because, correct me if I'm wrong, it has to be half of his cabinet. There's like 12 people in his cabinet, right?
A majority of cabinet.
Majority. So it has to be more than half, more than 6 people. I think it's 12 people. I might be wrong about that. But I think it's 12 people in his cabinet, so it has to be 7 people. And
then like 7 quit today?
I think 7 quit in the past 24 hours.
Yeah. Hey, sorry, Betsy DeVos. I'm sorry you couldn't make it your last 11 days to not do shit for public education. Yeah. We're going to really miss you. Go back to Amway.
So in terms of the 25th Amendment, I mean, we can get into all his issues and stuff, but it's going to take another couple of hours, so I'm not going to do that. I'll just finish up my comments with this. In a quote-unquote perfect world, it should have been used yesterday.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
But De'Aaron, I'm going to throw this out there.
Go ahead.
That goes back to what I was saying about McConnell and Lindsey Graham and everything. Anybody that spoke in the last 24 hours that are so appalled that were complicit in these actions, I don't rock with you either.
Mm-hmm.
I don't rock with your statements.
Mm-hmm.
Like you are honestly telling me that, and we just do this as a discussion group. And you all see, stay tuned. Stay tuned. Just wait. Stay tuned. Lawsuits are being filed. Lawsuits go nowhere. Stay tuned. The Electoral College can do this. December 14th hit. Nothing happened. Still was 306-232. Stay tuned. Wait till June or January 6th. Stay tuned. All right, what can happen on January 6th? Vice President can't do anything. We have 140 congressmen that are going to oppose the Electoral College. Do you know that if you needed 270 to be a majority, 140 is less than 270? I have a math degree. That shit wasn't going to work. All it was going to do is waste our time. And you had the same thing. And you act like you couldn't have these conversations before. And with the 25th Amendment, it was really put in place. The spirit of it was put in place if a president, let's say, was terminally ill, not going to be able to conduct their duties as the president of the United States. Therefore, the 25th Amendment or 25th Amendment was created. We can say that Donald Trump doesn't have the mental capacity to continue as president for the next 11 days or whatever so we need, or 13 days, so we might need to invoke the 25th Amendment. No, I'm putting it out there. I'm saddened by this. I think it is a national risk. I think that it is a bad look to other countries. I want to see that human in handcuffs. I want to see him get the Aaron Hernandez treatment, where they don't even let him put on his shirt. Just throw something over him and put him in the back of a cop car. Like, that's what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care if it's from his phone call on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if it's his inciting a riot, a coup, all of these things. I don't really care. But I don't even care if he pardons himself. I'm going to be real. That human is in the later stage of his life. And if people talk about Joe Biden was old and senile and all, if you watch these actions the past week, that human, if he runs again in 2024, I should not have a worry, because only thing that can happen is he gets dumber, he gets less responsible. But I just want to see him face all of those things that he says from his energy that he condemns. And I don't understand, I'm still going to loop back to it. When he said, I love you all, we were cheated, but I need you to be peaceful, people act shocked. This bitch said that back in 2017 after a woman was run over by a car after white nationalists were in Charlottesville, North Carolina, or in Charlottesville, Virginia. Mm-hmm. He said there were good people on both sides. He said there were good people on both sides. And if people are saying the spirit of it is, there are people that did not want it to lead to loss of life, that would be one thing. But no, there's no good person that walks in unison with someone that says that Jews are against me and that I should have my right in America because I am white. There's not one good person, not one accepting person that echoes that thought. And I was talking to our departed difficult discussions friend, because he's one that, like you're saying, Johnny, that posted, support for the things that were happening in the Capitol. And I asked, since, you don't give a fuck about masks, you don't give a fuck about travel, why didn't you take your bitch ass to Washington? You showing off videos of you shooting a gun. Why didn't you wind up there, since you're so passionate about it? You make, $300,000 as a motivational speaker. Getting on your jet plane wasn't enough. Why didn't you take your patriotic ass there? Because you're not about that life. But I'm interested to see when that person has their, post those things about patriotism and all of these other things, but yet we don't see them participating in making America better. We don't see them living out those patriotic acts. And now all of a sudden, just like the Republicans are on their redemption tours of all the things that we need for Donald Trump, no, everybody should not just want him to concede today, but they should want the courts to do their jobs with that human beyond the 25th Amendment.
Let's see if he was taken out of office with the 25th, what would be the next step? So, like, explain it to the viewers that may not be familiar with the 25th Amendment. Like, how would that work? What would be the next step?
So what needs to happen is his cabinet, which I don't even know who's there, and it's not like people are getting rehired for, 7 business days. The cabinet will have to vote. It's kind of like when unions put out a vote of no confidence for leadership in public entities. You have like a vote of no confidence. And then the vice president, after that vote of no confidence happens, the vice president will accept that vote of no confidence and then will take over power as the president of the United States. Because that's the proper succession. President can't do his job. Vice president was elected to do the job. That process isn't that long. Nancy Pelosi kind of gave an ultimatum to say, either you do this process to invoke the 25th Amendment and we get this done so that this human gets out of office. He doesn't have sensitive information anymore. He doesn't have to be debriefed on anything anymore. Because if America did come under attack tomorrow, he is still the commander-in-chief of our military tomorrow. So Nancy Pelosi said we would draw up impeachment papers. Now, impeachment, as we've already learned, that is another democratic process. So you're going to need votes, you're going to need arguments, you're going to have to get evidence. It's got to go through the House, got to go through the Senate. But if it started before January 20th, it can still continue impeaching the current president no matter what. That's why the only time that in history that has happened with Richard Nixon resigned before he was impeached, or I'm formally impeached and through the Senate, so that it's kind of quit before you get fired. So I just think the facets of our government that can come down on him, let it happen.
Then what stands to happen to everyone that stood in that room and said that they protest the election because they feel that Trump was cheated, regardless of not having any evidence? Like, what happens to all of those senators? Like, how
You're
does
talking about senators and Congress.
It was only people in the House, I think.
Okay.
No, it was 6 senators too.
Oh, 6 senators?
What
Six
happened
senators,
to
yeah.
their career now that they've basically laid out on a set of train tracks to say that they were basically like not for what's happening right now in our democracy? How does that play out for their careers?
I'll say this: everything will be up to the new AG, Merle Gardner, if I'm pronouncing his name right.
Yeah.
Joe Biden already said that it's not going to be his call. Whatever he does, whatever new Attorney General does, okay. That said, just a whole bunch of armchair quarterback scholars, and some of the good ones too. They said that, let's just say this whole process plays out, it is possible that some of the senators and some of the Congress people could be charged with sedition or treason. Some of them can be expelled from the House or the Senate. Now, granted, it takes 2/3 of the Senate or 2/3 of the House for expulsion. I don't think that's going to happen. Obviously, for obvious reasons. You don't have 2/3 of the majority of the Democrats in the House or the Senate. So I don't think that's going to happen. But you have a lot of avenues that this could go. But the one thing that people fail to realize, treason and sedition, the highest penalty is not just life in prison or being removed from office.
Yeah.
The highest penalty is death. And people have not grasped that concept yet. Because people say, oh, that's not too big of a deal. Anything punishable by death is a big deal.
Yeah. And I think sedition and treason, like the term treason kind of gets thrown around kind of loosely.
Right. Agreed.
As we've obviously seen, the election was treason and all these other things. Like, people bastardize it to anything that's against their viewpoint and not anything that is an attack and an act of supporting another country to attack our country. Like, people don't really understand that scope of it. But to your point, actively knowing from Donald Trump's position to try and impede the democratic process of our free elections, that is very serious. And the shameful part is I got friends that kind of like live all over the world, and they said, remember when your country talked about Egypt? Remember when your country talked about Venezuela? Remember when your country talked about insert, country and their political differences and ideologies? Remember what your country said about Iraq? And look at us now. That's where I'm questioning the Patriots. You're telling me if we saw news of Parliament being infiltrated, we wouldn't say, what in the hell? Do we have to send our troops over there to retain order? If we saw, Gaddafi and Saddam, why did we need to get Gaddafi and Saddam out of office and their regimes in control? And I'm not calling anybody that supports Trump the same as insurgents from those countries, but you got to show me some differences there. And it's just shameful because this is the guy that wouldn't put up Barack Obama's picture. And I definitely don't know if we continue the presidential tradition of putting up paintings or pictures when this guy is okay with somebody taking down the United States flag and putting up a flag with his name. Like, that's, hey, don't say you're a Republican. I know a bunch of Republicans. They're great. We just think differently. They vote no on school millages. I vote yes. They vote no on road commission infrastructure. I vote yes. That's the difference between Democrat and Republican. Not giving a shit about George Floyd. You got to look deeper in your well to know what's coming out.
I agree. I mean, it's been really interesting tonight, and I don't know how this is really going to play out going forward when it comes to alternating perspectives. Because I personally feel like it's going to start to lose steam. Because when we say people were telling us to stay tuned, that was the mantra. Stay with the six, and you was the light. Well, we saw the light. So I don't see where this goes from here. So you can support this man all you want, but at the end of the day, okay, let's say we did overturn it. Donald Trump is the president again. Okay, so what happens after 4 years of that? He cannot run again. So I still, again, just don't understand how people were willing to put their lives on the line to put a man in office who lost. And to the people that make the argument that there's widespread corruption in our politics and we need to take up arms against our politicians, politicians are elected officials. Now, you can ask the question, who voted for Mitch McConnell? Like, why would you vote for this man to get him his job back? But clearly, those people felt that he was doing the job they wanted him to do, which was vote no on millages. So I guess he's doing his job, But when it comes to Trump, it's like, dude, like, he's out. You got to move on. I just, again, I think back because my first time voting was in 2000. It's first time voting. Never voted before. And I just remember all the unrest that there was about the election, but it didn't turn into this. They deliberated about it. They had meetings. They had hearings. And at the end of the day, they were like, look, this is what it is. And conceding happened, and we moved on. So I just don't understand like how we've gotten to this toddler mentality of temper tantrums when we don't get our way. So I just feel like if nothing else, you can talk about politics, you can talk about the economy. Oh my God, this guy yesterday with his speech and rhetoric about financing, it's all about the money. I'm like, bruh, you make $30,000 a year. Stop. Like, you can make that big talk, but that does not hold weight. You are not in an influential situation here where that money means anything. So stop. You know, like, you can think, well, I'm gonna strike it rich one day, so I want to have Trump as president to protect my money. You cannot have a financial plan that's based on winning in a casino or winning the lottery. That is not a financial plan. So give it up, bro. Give it up. So, you know, you make all these statements and talk about all this stuff that really doesn't matter at the end of the day, because it's like, dude, what does Donald Trump have to do with that? You are saying that politicians are corrupt while simultaneously saying you're willing to commit treason to keep a politician in power. That doesn't make sense to me. You know, if you truly are a patriot and you truly want change, you should be saying, we, the people, are going to take up arms and start making decisions and hold entire across the board to elections. Because if it's that bad and it's that corrupt, we truly need to make change. And are there people pocketing stuff and making decisions and doing things that they shouldn't do for money? Of course. That's the nature of capitalism. But we're not in this, like, you know, dystopian future that people are trying to profess that we have. Like, oh man, gas is going to be $25 a gallon and the interest rates are going to go up to 30%. Oh, we're going to do this and I'm doing that. Like, do you understand that when we look at the annals of history, you can look back at 2008. I thought my job was going to go away. I worked at a car dealership. The car dealership I worked for, the literal company went out of business. We don't make these vehicles anymore. Figure it out. We became a used car lot overnight. However, in the annals of history, we will look at the level of job loss that we had in 2019 that rivals or is higher than the Depression. So you talk about these numbers, these metrics, and all this stuff. It was really bad last year. Lots of businesses went under, lots of people went under. So then the argument becomes, well, the blue states did that. That's what it is. Because you said COVID isn't real. You said COVID isn't a big deal. So you can't blame COVID because it's not real, apparently. So it's just the Democrats that decided the best thing for me to do as a politician is to put businesses out of business. That somehow, you know, if you go back to South Park, the underpants norm. Step 1, steal underpants. Step 2, step 3, profit. So I'm understanding, I'm missing what step 2 was in putting businesses out of business, and step 3 being it's good for us. So I don't get that. So again, if your beef is with politicians, you can't be a Trump supporter. He is a politician. That is what he is by definition today. Well, no, he's a businessman. He's not a politician. No, he's a politician. He's the president. So you can't make that argument. If you're anti-socialism, if you're anti-Antifa, if you're anti-Black Lives Matter, if you're all these things, none of that leads you to Donald Trump. So that's not how this works. As Vernon said, same energy. So
2021.
Our 24/7 ability to interact with me. I got one more question I want to put to you guys. It's in the comments, and then we can shut it down.
All right.
Megan is asking, do you think our 24/7 ability to interact is what makes the current reaction so different from prior presidential elections? So do you think our access to immediate information has somehow corrupted the way we interpret it, or is it the fact that we have a president that is well aware of the way we process information and is utilizing it to his benefit to corrupt it?
Second.
You want to go first, Bernie?
Well, second point, I agree with her. It does kind of tie into like what Will Smith said. It's not that we're seeing more violence or more brutality from police officers. It's just being documented. Everybody has the ability to document now. And that's what we're seeing. It's not that there is more of a divide. It's just that I can argue with a guy I knew from my first year of coaching 17 years ago, and I can see his Facebook posts and see his values today without actually seeing him. Mm-hmm. You know, so I agree with that. But now I'm going to tell people my energy is the same. Bad leadership is bad leadership. And I think bad leadership came from someone that didn't understand the responsibility of their words, someone that instead of using like his press secretary to disseminate information and quality press briefings, got into arguments on Twitter, got into slander on Twitter, then his employees, as soon as they did not follow suit, he switched them out. So that started to make them more extreme. Sean Spicer was an idiot. His second press secretary was someone trying to be as professional as possible.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Yes, Sarah Huckabee had to try and align with him. Kayleigh McEnany, she is a complete joke. And I think a friend of mine posted, Donald Trump's not delusional. He knows exactly what he's doing. He is feeding and he is fostering delusional people.
Mm-hmm.
He is motivating delusional people. He's fine. He just knows who to get to cheer for.
So you're saying he's selling salt water in a desert?
Oh, big time.
Mm-hmm.
Water to a well, salt to a slug. Like, that's what he's doing. I mean, but Johnny, you made the point, man. I'm trust me, people, you can look it up. We're blessed financially in my household, but we ain't nowhere near worried about being taxed on our $400,001. Like, then the lack of understanding, if you make $400,001, that $1 is taxed at that new rate, not your first 400,000. And you have people literally talking, like you said, Johnny, that make $30,000 talking about what Joe Biden's tax plan is going to do to them. And then their excuse is the trickle-down nature of, well, if the company I work for starts to get taxed higher, then they're going to start doing things to save money, and eventually they're going to save money through me as the employee. That's not about the tax plan. That's about the shitty employer you work for. Like that.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the things where I'm just confused at what benefit you got. And we've talked about it on Difficult Discussions for a while. Donald Trump didn't really, other than how he has changed human reactions with each other, not one policy has really affected me. I don't know about you all. Not one policy from the president has made these vast impacts. The next thing is understanding that when the president signs something, it has gone through the House, made it from the House to the Senate, made it from the Senate vote to his desk. So to give all credit to one person and completely not acknowledge the other branch of government, the lawmakers, is irresponsible also. I just think that stop getting your information from Facebook. Stop getting your information from memes unless you are willing to educate yourself to defend that same meme, like you're saying, Johnny. Like, if you're going to post it, understand that your share means you own everything in it. And own everything in it as I don't want to say supported from, oh, I can eventually get something, but you know about it, you know? But we're in a place, I don't think our democracy is going to end. I don't think all of these things are in shambles. But that is another reason why I honestly like my vote for Joe Biden. After what happened yesterday, and with how he interacts with the other side of the aisle, hopefully there's not an intent to block things as there was during the Obama administration. And we can get to the point where we have more bipartisanship. And if we're talking about, no, we don't accept this tax increase of 25%, but we will accept 23%, guess what? That is a division that is okay, that comes with compromise.
Mm-hmm.
But saying that someone being shot in the back 7 times Well, what did he do? Defunding the police isn't the answer. Blah, blah, blah. The libs, the snowflakes, you are in control of your responses. And I'm still trying to find where Nancy Pelosi says disparaging remarks and finds some form of discriminatory term for Republicans other than conservatives. I'm still trying to find the disparaging remarks from Kamala. I'm still trying to find the disparaging remarks from Joe Biden. But as I've always said, show me your last 10 tweets. I'll tell you a whole lot about you. Show me your last 10 Facebook posts. I'm going to tell you what your belief system is.
I had to actually do that today because there was a guy that was like on there. He was saying, you know, for all you people that are complaining about what happened yesterday, you were quiet back over the summer. I'm like, then you clearly haven't looked at my profile page.
Mhm.
It's like, you know, I'm literally asking for that same energy. So it's like I'm having trouble with the hypocrisy on the level that I made a post early this morning. I'm like, you know, it's not just the hypocrisy. It's the fact that when we were having that conversation, the conversation was, this is why you die. You shouldn't do that if you don't want to die.
Mhm.
Now, we are not only, because we're not even talking about, this isn't whataboutism. Don't confuse that. This is not whataboutism. Because I'm not saying they're just quiet. No, they're actively championing what happened yesterday. That's the problem. You went telling me I am going to die, and you will post on Facebook, he died because he did not follow authority. He died because he didn't comply. He died because he must have broken the law, even though he wasn't able to go to court to show that he was actually guilty. He's dead, and it's justified. And post a picture of me at the gun range because I have a gun. Why I'm dead. But yet you have these cats that are occupying a government building with no actual plan. We're in here now. What do? We didn't actually think we would get in. Grab the podium. That is a joke. That is not patriotism. I don't know one person that served this country that looked at what happened yesterday and said, those are my guys. That's what I fought overseas for. This is it. This is the answer. You know, and that breaks my heart as an American to see that people are willing to compromise even the very fabric of their homeland to support a man whose entire platform is, if I didn't win, it had to be fraud because you all voted for me. And we hear that and actually accept it. Everyone had, I mean, this man has said massive landslides. So do you understand the level of corruption that it would take to not only sway an election, but sway an election that's far fields? But you talk about math and you talk about probabilities. What did my man say yesterday? The law of averages.
Do you know the law of averages?
You know, it's just like, how is it that you can stand on this platform and it's like, I wish I could get a guy like that on this show, because I would step back and not say a word, because here's a man who is educated, went to college just like you did, but you're on two different planets. I mean, you would almost say one's on a planet and one's on Pluto that floats between planet and moon, you know. So we get to a point where it's like, how do you two have a dialogue as educated individuals, higher educated individuals? Because I see a man on one side of this table that wants to use large words, use large statements, terminology to give the perception that they are utilizing intellect with their statements, but it all turns out to be hollow. What I see is a person that has very cheesecake that when I cut inside of it, it's all sponge cake. And that is my problem. And this is a man just like Trump who's spreading that information with the good coating of icing on top that everybody loves, that icing, and they don't realize that they've been duped until they take a deeper bite. I want to see a person like that sit across from you, Vernon, from you, De'Aaron, and try to use those tactics because you have a perception that will not allow those things to happen. And that's all I can try to do, but I don't have that higher level of education. I can just come at it objectively and really experience based. So when he makes those claims, I can only come in and say, well, look, how do you relate that to the common man? Because you're talking about percentages for 400K over, like how many people make that? That's not a comparable argument because that's not the status quo. So how does this affect the status quo? And I'm basically told that I'm not paying attention. I'm not doing my research. I don't want to see what he sees. And I'm like, I did a shameless plug yesterday. I had someone tell me that I needed to look at the other side to understand the other side's perspective. That was a good one. So, I go out of my way to talk to these people. I warmed my heart when I had a discussion with one person where at the end of the conversation, when I kept asking about credible facts, that it finally boiled down to, I have to go to bed now because I don't have any. So I don't have anything to provide. So I'm just going to end the conversation. However, she ended it saying, I'm glad you kept this polite. And that's been my goal since day one, to not antagonize. And I don't really feel, I know you were very passionate tonight, Vernon, that this was a really antagonistic episode. I don't feel that it's that way because we are saying we don't understand. And we have asked people to come on this show and help us understand. Right. And they refuse to do so.
Right.
So what are we left with? If I've asked for understanding and you provide none, I'm only left to try to understand on my own. So I have to go by now my perception, your experiences to try to understand the other side, try to play devil advocate with ourselves. It's the best we can do. Because I don't understand how, again, if the fix was in, everyone should see it. We're walking around like this. When I ask you to take the wool from over my eyes, you don't do it. So I don't get that. That's like me championing the Second Amendment, and then when you ask me to explain the Second Amendment to you, I say I don't have time to read it to you. I don't get that energy. You know what I'm saying? So I'm left befuddled today because what I saw yesterday was a bunch of Call of Duty players succeed in breaking into a government facility. So it makes our security system look bad because here we got a bunch of beer gut, flag waving, guys up in here, like literally walking on the grounds of the floor. I don't, I'm sitting at Pelosi's desk. It was a mockery. It was a literal mockery. I don't know where to go from here. I really don't.
Yeah.
So if you got any closing arguments, give them up. Let's
no, Johnny, first off, don't sell yourself short, man. And you're a prime example. I like when people say formal education doesn't make you smart. And I 100% agree with people. But lack of wanting understanding is what makes you dumb. And those are two profound different things. But yeah, you do a good job. I don't know if we're ever going to make that move where we get people to come on. And we've made modifications to schedule and all these things. And we don't want to bash people, but we got to get some understanding because, like I said, I don't think this divide exists based on Democrat and Republican. That's my view. I think that one day when we have a difficult discussion about taxes, when we have a difficult discussion about international affairs and America's role in it, that will be a great difficult discussion.
Mm-hmm.
That means that people have had the difficult discussions. I take one of our guests that was a one-timer. I've been looking at his Facebook, and I'm just like, wow, I see exactly why you came on to difficult discussions. And he shows all of these Democrat politicians and how horrible they are. And there's never a criticism a Republican politician. And I try and look at myself and say, well, equally, do you post any criticism of Democrat politicians? And I had to say, like, no, because I don't post lies and BS rhetoric the opposite way either. And that's why our motivation this year is just keep the exact same energy. I'm not saying I want Joe Biden to be unprofessional and crass and irresponsible with his social media. But if he says, damn it, I better not hear nothing. If he says, you know, we got to get something done and the Republicans are holding us up, I don't want to hear nothing. Because all I heard was the do nothing Democrats. But hey, if we are one country, let's do it, because I need us to stop acting like everything divides us. I didn't know masks were a Republican or Democrat issue.
Right.
I didn't know. I understood guns. I understood abortion. I understood, you know, taxes. I don't understand bastardizing support for police in order for you to be racist. Because I love a whole bunch of police officers, and they're some of my best friends and relatives, and I support them every day. But you waving that flag, your intentions aren't that.
Right.
So people got to look at themselves. Quote from earlier in our episodes: "What's in the well comes out in the bucket."
Mm-hmm.
That's all that happens. That's what happened yesterday, Johnny. It never had anything to do with rioters. It never had to do anything with Antifa. What was in the well came out in the bucket. There's no accountability for people that look like me ever being the bad guy in the movie. That's it.
Right.
So, hey, it was a great one tonight.
It was.
Arguments?
I won't even say it was a closing argument. I'm just going to give my thoughts. I've been saying this for a minute. Between now and 21st are going to be some of the, I don't want to say concern, I don't want to say dangerous, but some of the things, some of the most, it doesn't sound right to say this, look out. But the next 2 weeks, we're going to have to be mindful. There we go. Mindful of what's going on, what we see, what kind of rhetoric we hear. We can go two ways with this in the next 2 weeks. We can start healing, or people can get more mad about Biden being president. Everybody wants to go one way, but we also know the potential can go the other way. It's good to think positive, but we have to understand there is more than one way. There's more than two ways it's going to go, to be honest. So as you know, somebody who's just, try to talk to people and stuff, keep the dialogue open, ask them what's going on. If you see something, literally, if you see something, you know what to do. Just try to understand people. And this is what difficult discussions is about, trying to understand people. Even though there's some people on the other side, I mean, it happens on all sides, but there's some people on the other side who may not want to hear us, who may not want to have dialogue with us, who may just hate us, but that's okay. We just have to understand that the next 2 weeks is just going to be so concerning that we can't let our guard down. I'm just going to be honest with that. We can't let our guard down. Even when Biden's in office, we still have to have a little guard up. We still have to be mindful of what's going on. Wasn't you that said Bird might take? No, that was Johnny who said it might take 4 months for it to come down. I think it might take a little longer than that. This is something that's been doing for years. something that's been building for years doesn't take months to come down. Now, granted, it can happen. Positive sides, being positive, it can happen. I just don't see it like that. So we're gonna have to work as a society, right, left, black, white, brown, whatever, to heal this country. And we're going to have to work hard at this. And we're going to have to be diligent about this. We can't have violence. We can't have people threatening or making our politicians, elected officials, fearful for their lives. We can't be committing violence one way or the other. It's just a lot we have to do as a society to get this thing back to where it was before Trump in office. In fact, I'm pretty sure, the underlying stuff before even Obama got into office, or, back to the point where we can actually communicate with one another. Communicate. I mean, you can disagree with one another, but we still like each other. We didn't have to use ad hominem. We didn't have to, cuss people out and stuff like that. And it's tiring. I'm tired of this. I'm legit tired of this. It's draining. It's really, really draining.
Well,
that's my 2 cents.
The reason why I say 4 months is because I look at the overall end game. Because as I've discussed here, it seems to me like the overarching catalyst is Trump himself.
Right.
Who are aligning themselves specifically with Trump and his revolving door of motives.
Mm-hmm.
With him out of office, the only thread you could really hold on to would be that he'd run again 4 years later. Mm-hmm. So that would be the only thing to keep the pot simmering for the next 4 years. But I don't think that simmer would be enough to boil for people to be as abrasive as they've been for the last 4 years. I feel like a lot of these people would regress, basically lay low to get the heat off so that he could try to make another campaign 4 years from now. Because if you keep acting this way, there's no chance.
Right.
So it's like, it's not necessarily like we're getting culpable. It's just that we are going to basically regress so that we can try to forget the last 4 years.
Right. I get that. I get what you're saying.
I think it'll just get quiet. It's not necessarily that we're going to work together. It's going to get quiet. You're not going to have people storming government facilities and things of that nature. You're not going to see that because there's no reason to. What's your goal? So you have a situation now, especially with a lot of the Republican Party, they're like, man, we don't align with Trump either. So it's like, what do? You just called Pence a traitor. So if you unseat Biden and get Pence, like, how does that work? So it really all boils down to Donald Trump. And it's funny that he has been able to amass that level of influence and power. It just blows my mind. So I think honestly, for a guy like him, you get out of office, and if you can avoid jail and lawsuits and things of that nature, you need to use that power of influence back in your business sector where you were successful previously. Utilize that following from the people who just want to follow you, and stake your claim that way. You still can be powerful. You don't have global influence anymore, but you never really needed that. Like, I still to this day don't really think Donald Trump wants to be president anymore. I don't think he does, because he really did nothing to help his case from anyone that may have been on the edge of who I should vote for. I'm a one-issue voter. I made up my mind the day I found out who he was running against. But the people who were still, relatively on the fence, he did nothing to gain those votes. So it's like a two-sided situation. He doesn't want to be defeated because of the narcissism, but at the same time, he really doesn't want to do it anymore. So, like today, he tweeted, or I think he did a speech rather, where he said he would concede. So at this point, with the president himself saying that, where is the steam to continue the nonsense that we've seen? Like, your guy just said it's over. So I think we will be able to move on. And my only issue is that, they say forgive, but don't forget. I am willing to forgive a lot of the things that people have said, but I'm never going to forget them. And it's difficult for me to be able to understand how to toe that line between still dealing with a lot of people that I know for a fact had anti-sentiment towards me, and that's a difficult thing to have to deal with. You try to tell yourself, all right, it wasn't really them. It's like
it's like Scooby-Doo at the end when they pull the mask off the ghost to see who it is. You're pulling that mask off of your friend to find Donald Trump there. These people were becoming a conduit for Donald Trump. So once we can, use our proton packs like the Ghostbusters and exorcise that demon out of these people, they'll go back to being who they were. And I think we'll be able to, as a society, work together again once that influence is no longer there.
Right.
And it is what it is. They smelled an aroma that they really appreciated, and they wanted to hold on to it as hard as they could for as long as they could. Little did you know that it was, a toxic fume that was killing you, but you just want it. So you gotta take a level of understanding with these people. Unfortunately, it did get very far left and far right. I think today we are in a better position, honestly, socially, than we were 6 months ago, because people were literally posting saying that my life could end and it should be justified. Like, we were getting some very inflammatory posts online, and you're not seeing a lot of that today. So I think we are making progress towards people understanding their impact on others and understanding once again how that is important. In the 80s, we didn't care about the ozone. We didn't care about the environment. We were just go, go, go. And we had to relearn how to take care of ourselves. And I think that's just something we got to do today once we can move beyond Donald Trump. Learn how to take care of our fellow man again. Learn how to recognize your fellow man again. Because, I'm not going to start another difficult discussion, but, when we get into the pro-life thing, a lot of pro-life people step over people that don't have anything and need help. I don't understand that, so we got to learn how to get our compassion back. So I appreciate you guys coming on tonight. I was excited for this one because we literally saw the most ridiculous thing you will ever see yesterday. Tuned in, we waited, we stood by, and we got to watch with popcorn the dragon eat its own head. So next week, I think we'll get back to hopefully our normal format if we can actually convince someone to come on. But I feel like the more we do this, the less likely that is to happen, because they unfortunately feel like it's a futile measure. But again, I'm not asking you to change my perception. I'm literally just asking you to explain your position so that I understand it. That's all I want. I understand why Vernon has a negative opinion of firearms. We still don't agree on firearms, but I totally understand where he's coming from and why he's saying the things he says. And I would imagine the same can be said back to me. He understands why I feel the way I do, why I say the things I say. Mm-hmm. So that's all I'm looking for, is a level of understanding. I'm waiting for that one person that can come out of the ether onto this show, sit down with us, and explain to me why Donald Trump did what he did and why it made sense. That's all I want. Because if that's how you feel, if you feel what he's doing is right, I just want you to be able to explain it in a manner that I can understand. Because apparently you're speaking English and I'm speaking Swahili. We are not understanding each other. I just want to understand. I don't want to argue. I don't want to debate. I really want to understand. And with you coming onto my show and expressing your thoughts, if I question those thoughts to further my understanding, that's not an attack on you. I'm literally trying to understand. So if you make a statement that I don't perceive to be true, I'm going to question you on it. That's not an attack. That's not me not being objective. That's literally me going out of my way to put myself in your shoes. How can I put myself in your shoes if you won't have that dialogue with me? Because you don't have time. Because you don't think it's going to go anywhere. Because it doesn't matter. If it doesn't matter, then your position is moot. So, good evening, gentlemen. Thanks again for everyone that tuned in. I appreciate it. I caught as many questions as I could. Comments tonight.
Good discussion in the comments.
Absolutely. Great discussion.
So thank you all again for participating. I know we were gone for a couple weeks with the holiday, but we'll be back to our normal schedule now. Hopefully the country doesn't set fire in a couple days. So you
be good.
Good night, guys.
All right.
Have a good night.